All right. Well, we're back with another episode in a week. It's been a week, or
What a
100
week.
billion years or something. I don't know. It feels about right.
You know, I'm just very excited right now that it looks like Bitcoin is finally crashing, which is what Craig and I were predicting last week.
Oh, what's it crashing to? 30,000?
Yeah, it's going. Well, it'll crash.
Going down.
It'll go down. Yeah. So
it might have a bounce, but it's going to go down to like 10, 15, and then it's going to go back up to like maybe 20, 25. Then it'll go back down.
Maybe.
My guess is maybe 6, but I tend to underestimate, so it might go to a little bit higher than 6.
The analyst estimates that I've seen and the baseline numbers that I've seen are estimating somewhere around 12. Now that being said, there could be some higher values or lower values than that, depending on what people put into it, because this is probably the most public exposure it's had, so it's probably going to fall a little bit farther than it normally has. But on the other hand, we've also inflated our currency, so it may hold more value than it normally does.
You see, you say that like this is the most public exposure it's had, but it's had public exposure for like a fucking decade.
Yeah, but it definitely, it got a lot more this time around.
Well, than the last time it jumped in price by about 20,000%.
Yeah, but it still didn't get the same, there were people saying that this is a good investment, actual institutions saying that, and they didn't have that the last time. Everybody, the last time around it was, oh my god, this is a very volatile asset.
I really liked the estimate that it would, what was it, Goldman Sachs or whatever that had that backroom estimate that was going to hit $300 and some odd $1,000 this year. That's just not fucking happening.
Oh yeah, I heard somebody
they
say
put that out
year
every
200,000, and it's like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You just wait for the next time. God damn, it goes up so much every time. You don't. Pay attention to the ratios here. It'll be a lot, but it won't be that much this year.
No, and I mean, ultimately, when we start talking about it, the last time it went through its classic cycle, which is initial, actual steady, stable growth. A couple people take notice. Then there's this small. Usually it's a positive event that's in its favor, or a negative market event that works in its favor because it's a good residual, and that spikes a little bit more. Then everybody jumps on board. Then it inflates its value even more. More people jump on board. The whales start to dump. More people jump on board thinking the price goes up. Then everybody starts getting fear of missing out, so they all pile on, and then it kind of hits a level where it can't go any higher because everybody who's into Bitcoin is already into Bitcoin. Right? Anybody who is going to invest is already invested. At which point,
it's saturation,
the whale
and then
dump.
everybody. Yeah.
And by the way, as of 4 a.m. UTC, it is at 35,719.
Yeah, and about 12 hours. Was it 12 hours ago or 18 hours ago? Whatever it was, it hit $41,000. So it's going down.
And it's not just going down, so there was a breakdown in the pretty much linear trend increase at 36 to 40 in that range. It was wobbling up and down for 2 days, and then it got up to 41, 42, and it held that for about 12 hours, at which point it decayed down to about 40,000. Then it held 40,000 for a day, and that's exactly the point that you know that it's done. Right? It has not continued its upward trend. It has basically, there has been the price oscillations of people trying to play the market. It's stabilized out. Nobody's coming in. Nobody's getting out. And then all of a sudden the whales are going to start to dump. And when the whales start to dump, it's going to hurt because they all bought when it was 3 earlier this year.
So here's the fun thing. This is what we were just talking about earlier before you hopped in, Evan, is China has been having power issues, literal electrical power issues.
I heard about Pakistan. What's the deal? More so
than just normal. Well, Pakistan doesn't have any hashing power. They don't matter.
No, fair. But I mean, I heard about that specifically. But what's going on?
Well, so they're getting rolling blackouts throughout the country.
That is just until they figure out a way to convert the Uyghur Muslims into fuel. That will happen.
Much. Are they not burning them already?
Yeah.
Well, after they've raped all the women, they have to do something with the remaining men and the children.
Yeah, after they've finished making all the iPhones, they have to go into the burners.
That's
so they're having rolling blackout issues. basically all this shit where they're trying to posture as if they don't import 80% of their energy, like in the literal sense. All that posturing is really causing them to suffer because their main backup is usually to go over to Russia and say, hey, can we get some of that oil you got? And Russia fucking hates China right now because of the coronavirus. So
that's reasonable.
All this bluffing that they're doing while they wait to get oil to come in through the Middle East because they can probably get in on some Iranian oil. They're not able to get enough in such a way that they're able to maintain their electrical power in their system. So a lot of different places are getting rolling blackouts. And so one of the investment strategies people have done, a lot of these whales tend to do, they'll diversify their investments across different exchanges, et cetera, but a lot of them tend to be Chinese exchanges, largely because they don't have any reporting requirements. So they can go in there, make some extra money, and then pull it back to the U.S. or wherever else, and count it basically as income beyond the stuff they sent out. And they just kind of straight income, and I guess there's certain fees and liabilities elsewhere in other jurisdictions that are a problem. So right now, with all this shit going on in China, like basically they're pulling out of exchanges, and that's kind of hampered their ability to respond to this price spike, which is one of the reasons why the price could go back up. But it's very much likely not to actually keep
if we've fallen, though to be fair, right, and this is what happened before.
Yeah.
Right? If we've fallen from 42 to 35, that's a huge price hit, right? That's what, 25%?
So
something like that, pretty close to 25%.
This is the part where they sucker you back. This is the part where they sucker you back in for a second sell off.
Yep.
So and then all little tiny peak that'll hit maybe 38 or whatever. And
I don't even think it'll go that high. I think you're probably going to see 36.
Yeah, and then it's going to drop like a rock to whatever the floor is going to be, which, like I said, between 10 and 15 is probably going to be the floor for this first little bump down.
Yep. It is.
This is the part where they sucker people back into thinking that it's going to go up again, and then the whales are going to drop out. And so if they've been having these issues in China for a while now, it's been long enough for the whales to pull out of there. So they're not going to see. This is why I don't think it's going to affect the price, because normally if they couldn't get their coins out of there, then they wouldn't be able to sell. The price would stay high. But if they've had the time to get out, and they can't hold them there. The way that they're set up, so that means they have the resources pooled, they're ready to dump in, and you're already seeing some of that starting up now.
And I mean, we haven't had the one thing that's kind of kept the price aloft as high as it is right now is that there hasn't been any negative news for the coin. That's what kind of started the sell-off in March. So Bitcoin does tend to thrive and fail based on positive or negative news. There hasn't been anything really positive for it. There's been no news, major services which are adopting it. I think, what was it? It was Overstock was back in 2018. That's what drove up part of the price. But there haven't been any. Nobody else is saying, yeah, we're going to take this and we're going to convert it for you. And nobody sat there and turned around and put a regulatory hassle on. So it's kind of been sitting in this space.
Limbo. Yeah.
And for the last 2 weeks, Craig and I have both, every time after the show, we've talked about it, and it's always been, hey, why hasn't this fallen yet? Because it should have fallen by now. And apparently the case is...
the idea was that it was going to fall. We didn't know exactly quite what the ceiling was going to be.
Yep.
My guess was back when it was around 30-ish. That might be it, but it still looked like it had good support to go for a higher ceiling. If you looked at the depth charts, then it looked like people are still betting on 50. I don't understand that, but whatever. But it's part of the drag down where the realization is going to set in soon and they're going to figure it out. But 40 was obvious last week.
It never does more than a solid doubling of the previous high price, right? So the
20 grand was pretty significant relative to the previous.
Well, it was what?
Right?
No, the previous was 12. So if you go,
it's about right.
So it was 1,200 in the 2013 to 2014.
Well, so this is
range.
also coincident with
Or 2012.
the price spike is also coincident with a difficulty doubling in the network, so there's also that.
So basically, the probability that you're going to see something that's higher than twice the previous price spike is not very good. So it went from, like, the actual historical gains were going from basically 0 to 300. And then it fell from 300 to 60. And then it went from 60 to 1200. But, I mean, it actually reestablished 300 in the period of, like, slow growth. But then it spiked from 300 to 1200, and then from 1200 back to 300. Then it went slowly over the next year or two, gained and held solid at 1200. It went to 6, collapsed back down to around 12 at the lowest point, rebuilt, and then it got up to 12, and then the last cycle it got up to 20. So it typically goes, like a doubling or so.
Yeah, every couple of years.
Every couple of years. You might see, like, 4 times, but the reality is the more expensive these coins become, the more money it takes to force that price higher. So realistically, going from $0 to 300 was not particularly hard. Going from, 20,000 to 80,000 would be incredibly difficult.
So, in any event, the interesting thing has been how the whales have been responding to the difficulties in moving some of their coin around, but the fact that they've got their coin out now, as evidenced by the price drop, should tell you that there's really not a whole lot stopping it. The whole gambler's peak's going to come in, and then they're going to go ahead and drop all they're going to dump coins.
Yep. I mean that's good, right? So if you're watching right, this is not the time to buy. Give it 6 months. It'll fall down to a decent price, and it'll hold that price for about 6 months before starting to increase again.
Yeah, and once it hits floor, the kind of global floor on the price for the asset is on an exponential rise. So
it is.
So
it's something
the minimum
that's good to have, but it's a real buy low, sell high kind of deal.
It really is.
But if you want to do long-term asset holding, you just wait for the next dip all the way to the bottom, and just hold it for 2 years.
And it'll be huge.
Right. You're gonna make back a fuck ton of money on it at that point.
Right. It's absolutely worth the investment.
And here's the thing. When that shit happens, what you don't do is go, oh, but tomorrow it could be better. As soon as you see it get up to, like, we'll say probably 60 to 80 next time, as soon as you see it cross, like, 60 or 70, just buy. Or, sorry, sell. Just dump it.
Yep.
Dump it before the whales do, because when the whales dump, the price drops like a rock.
But if you were to, even if we're talking about it falling down to 12, right, and it holds there, it's easily going to hit 60. And it could easily even go up to maybe 80, probably not, but probably 60 to 70 the next go-around. And at that rate, you're still talking about a 5-fold increase in whatever your investment is.
Right, this is why I said, when it's 60 or 70 is probably, like, if you're not, that last couple percent at the very top there is not worth it, because keep in mind, risk has a dollar value when you're talking about risk and economics. The risk to reward ratio there is not good enough for you to just to wait out the last little bit. Just, if you dump early and you go, darn, I missed out on that last 1,000 on top of my several tens of thousand.
Oh no, I made 500% instead of 505%. Yeah,
right.
Just cash out.
And a good way to actually keep track of that too, just as a by the by, you can watch gold forecasting, and the two track pretty. I mean, not 1-to-1 or anything, but they trade similarly. Gold's a slower indicator.
They do trade similarly, except Bitcoin goes crazy high and crazy low.
Yeah.
And that's because nobody really knows. There's not like, hey, this is gold, right? And we know exactly how it all works. There's a whole lot of people who are very inexperienced with Bitcoin. They aren't familiar with it. They aren't familiar with its behaviors. And so you get huge spikes and then massive sell-offs. Even though it probably would, if you were to just look at the lower values, it would probably trade just like gold.
So, speaking of intangible assets, or even just tangible commodity assets. Which, by the way, if you want to actually like save wealth, not just money, but like if you want to like maintain your wealth,
buy mattresses.
Don't
put your money under your mattress. Buy the mattress.
Well, I mean, if you're going to buy a MyPillow.
Oh, so
looking for
unless that asshole's
right
sponsoring you. Unless that asshole's sponsoring you.
I will take a Pillow Man sponsorship.
So you should invest in commodities because this leads us into the topic that I think we care about more.
If we had a pillow sponsorship,
the dollar's gonna go down.
If we
the
had
dollar, yeah.
If we had a pillow sponsorship, we'd have to, behave.
I don't know. He sponsors some interesting people. I mean, he sponsors Jim Baker, so.
I mean, I couldn't say things like Jesus should take a pineapple off the ass, or.
You probably could not say that. I suspect the MyPillow guy would get mad. At least a little bit mad.
Or maybe they nailed the wrong Jew to the cross.
Well, I mean, any Jew will do in a crisis, right?
God damn it.
And what is it they say? Never let a crisis go to waste. But,
that's exactly right.
Speaking of people who will never let a crisis go to waste. Do you see that fucking ABC is going to have a Hulu special?
Oh my god!
On the Capitol, the Capitol building riot, they're gonna have a Hulu special of it. Like it looks like a fucking made for daytime TV movie in the commercial. It's just shit.
And I'm sure they're gonna have their characters.
Unplugged from modern media.
Yeah, they're probably gonna. If we're gonna go out there and get some of those fantastic sci-fi actors come in, the ones who are about as believable as Biden.
Oh, maybe they'll get arch-terrorist Yoba to come and play himself.
Let's keep in mind, right? Let's keep in mind that in under a week, they've managed to pull this off. Right? 4 days. 4 or 5 days. And they have managed to build, orchestrate, and promote such a newsworthy event. Which means that
an hour-long special on Hulu.
Yeah, like... Holy crap.
Oh, speaking of newsworthy events, did you guys hear about the one of the heads from the Lincoln Project?
I heard that there's something going on about him, but I did not hear what actually happened.
John Weaver, he's apparently been, reset the clock,
somebody give him the pedo bear treatment?
Yeah, kind of.
You could have fucking called that shit, huh?
But it seems that he
Doesn't
was
it happen every
being
time?
very
Every
friendly
time.
with underage gay Republicans. Oh, did I mention he's married to a woman?
Like every single time.
Oh God,
every
he's married
single
to a
time.
female.
These holier than thou assholes end up like
Allegedly.
doing the worst of the crimes that can be done.
They turn out to be complete pieces of scummy shit.
Every single one. Every single one.
It's kind of like that countdown. 0 days since the last SJW turned out to be a fucking raging pedophile. It's like what was the last time an anti-PG person, right?
They are the only ones who don't get banned on Twitter.
No, it's sickening. If you go on Twitter and just type in map.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, you will not find something about cartography.
Or type in Zeta. There's nothing to do with Greek.
Certain things that if you ever wish to work in a respectable institutions, you should not type into the internet.
And map is one of them.
Want to know about cartography, type cartography, or map making as one word. Don't even put a space, because you don't want to know what makes maps.
Also, Zeta is not what you think it is. It has nothing to do with Greek on Twitter.
I actually don't know that term, and I'm okay with that.
It's the symbol for zoo.
I'm really okay with that.
Also, there's a Mexican organization that goes by the same name. I hear they put out videos every now and then as well that are.
Okay. Those videos are actually more palatable than the shit I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A beheading is more palatable than like a puppy getting fucked.
These are things that I am not so happy that some people.
Yeah. And
Craig,
you know what? You know
what happened to the dwarves that delved too deep? They brought out the Balrog.
Yeah, allow me to help here. So, not only does this shit exist, it exists on Twitter, and Twitter has not been banned from the Google Play Store. Why? Because reasons.
You know, you can't.
They allow the fucking Ayatollah and ISIS to coordinate on fucking Twitter.
They always have.
There are groups of us, and I say us because I help sometimes, that go around finding these fuckers and reporting them to either the authorities or to Twitter or other people who can at least try and hack into their accounts and implode them. And usually it ends up having to be the third option that actually finally gets rid of them. Because the FBI the FBI can't do a whole lot. They actually ask Twitter to get rid of them. Sometimes that works. Twitter just doesn't fucking listen to anybody because I don't know who the hell's on their moderation team, but apparently being a member of ISIS is not reason for you to get kicked off Twitter.
Well, it is far more distressing to the people.
Are you saying
that
you hate Islam? It sounds like you're saying you hate Islam.
It is far more distressing to the people in California that you are a Republican than that you are a pedophile.
See, that's the thing is I'm not even Republican. I guess you could call me conservative or libertarian, but even that doesn't really fucking describe me.
No,
well.
I'm not talking about.
What I'm going back in with is
that if
these people haven't gotten rid of me yet.
They find it more offensive that you are not a Democrat or that you have anti-Democrat stances than it is that you rape children.
You're just to the right of Mao. You're just to the right of Mao, and therefore literally Hitler.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And I as a Jew, can go ahead and say this as an authority on the matter.
I mean, I will say so. Twitter's the only social media platform that I engage in, and it surprises me how often and how long those accounts stay alive. I generally I have tried to avoid A, the portion of Twitter that actually participates in that, and B, the portion of Twitter that spends its time exposing it, because there's every time that I don't, right? I click on somebody that somebody wants reported, and I'm trying to figure out why it's reported, and then you just feel awful. There's nothing worse than that sensation when you realize what you clicked on. It is terrible, and you just you're scarred for a couple weeks, and these people should not be allowed on Twitter, but they are.
Oh god, I saw something earlier. This is a slight tangent. Actually, I'm gonna go fucking find it on my profile just because it's easier for me to mock it when I'm there.
You know, I'm
well,
just
while
going to
you're doing that, actually, too, we should probably mention if somehow people that are listening to this have missed it, Parler has been banned from everything. In addition to that,
you know, I loved when they turned around and they were sitting there and saying, "Hey, you guys, if you don't like the corporate blah blah blah, sit there and go create your own." So they created their own fucking social network, and you know what they turned around and did? They tapped their one after their fucking servers. You can't. The web hosting service that should have absolutely zero interest in this whole thing.
The Amazon web hosting service, you mean?
Yeah, the Amazon web hosting service is banning Parler because it hosts conservative content. That's what's ended up happening. So
Amazon
can't just
shit anyway.
You can't just turn around and suffer the fact that Twitter is Twitter. You have to sit there and deal with the fact that if you don't align with Twitter, you are going to be kicked off the internet.
Here's the thing. I like that. You see, it's been a suspicion, it's been a thing, and people knew about it as an issue with AWS and having to deal with Amazon. But it's really actually very nice that they decided to just come right out and show it.
Oh, yeah,
that's the thing.
Without being able to deny it. There was nothing that they violated in their terms either. Amazon can just at will dismiss you.
Amazon has, for all intents and purposes, stayed out of the culture wars. We know what Jeff Bezos' opinion is because he owns the Washington Post, and we know what they produce.
Well, I gotta tell you,
but it's not the same thing as
they haven't. AWS has been that way. They have not stayed out of the culture war. They just haven't been as in your face.
Open about it.
Yeah, and so like this whole AWS thing has been kind of a known thing that could happen, but like basically they can cancel your thing at will. That's in the agreement you sign is they can just kind of say you're done. So
I just haven't seen them do enough stuff.
Well, they're kind of in the background with this kind of shit, and now that they've done it overtly, the funniest thing is, people are gonna say, "Oh, well, go build your own." The Parler executives have been like inundated with emails from people willing to give them hosting. Now, that hasn't been the same with all their other key services, but as far as the back end of hosting and such, they've basically been given continuity options, which they did not realize they were going to have available to them. So there are other services out there, other web hosting services and like networking services that are willing to do business with people, that are trying to stay on the up and up, like Parler, or even Gab, for the most part.
Gab is, I can't really get behind Gab. They dive the opposite. They're like so anti-Twitter. It's to the extreme.
It's cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
Here's the thing. They claim to be anti-Twitter, but they aren't anti-Twitter. They do the exact same e-peen sucking bullshit. Which I've mentioned to you in private before, I believe.
Yes, so, they do. It irritates. Gab irritates the crap out of me, and I think that's one of the reasons why people started going to Parler was because Parler, for all intents and purposes, was relatively neutral. I'm not saying they don't have their bent, but it's not like
they're not. It's not institutionally anti-Twitter. It's like here's a free speech platform, and most of the people that go there got kicked off of Twitter.
Yeah.
That said, I honestly think Minds is one of the best ones out there right now.
It's good.
I know people who have gone there. I just at the end of the day, you have whenever you're talking about apps, ecosystems, social media, it's really about the size of the network that matters because ultimately,
Mastodon in that case is pretty good because it's federated. So like you basically run an instance yourself, and because you have Mastodon credentials anywhere, you can post it on any Mastodon network. So it's kind of imagine having a fractionated Twitter network.
Yeah, but you're still not going to have the same reach as you would on.
Well, that's the thing is remember if you're registered, if you're in on one Mastodon, you can carry credential to other parts of the federated network.
I suppose. I didn't think the federated thing was like fully off the ground yet, though. Like I know that Twitter was always talking about trying to be part of the Fediverse, and that they really wanted to be like the liberal Fediverse.
Twitter wants to do that, but they also want to keep centralized governance of their platform. Not going to happen.
Right, exactly.
Mastodon got it right, where they didn't have manpower or the will to do it, so they didn't do centralization. They did federation.
Yeah, for all their faults, I mean, they've really done a couple things right.
And for those that are listening, right? So the idea of the Fediverse is that you as an individual can have multiple social media, and instead of necessarily interacting with one social media platform, you would interact with all social media platforms as you kind of deal with it. And in the case of Twitter could have its own moderation policies, or Parler could have its own moderation policies. And, each one could be part of this universe, and basically it would allow people to kind of sit in the spheres of influence that they want.
So the way that this applies to Mastodon is that with Mastodon, the individual instances of it are set up by private entities, what have you. Like, say I could run a Mastodon on my own server at my house. But if someone was registered on my network of Mastodon, their credentials would carry over into other networks of Mastodon, and that would mean that mine is part of the federation of Mastodon networks.
Right.
So imagine now the Fediverse idea is to not just have Mastodon instances be the sum total of the federation, but instead to have the other services come in to the common credential system. But they, for their own reasons, and from a corporate level, it makes sense to not involve yourself in that at all.
Right.
But if you're looking at like free speech issues and you're looking at just having like a more open platform, that like if the aim is just to get users on and get users to talk, a federated system like that works pretty well. But you still have the same concerns about reach, but you have the reference implementation hosted by Mastodon. So that was
the original goal, was that each of these services would essentially be curators of content in some way, and like that's basically been the argument Twitter's been using for why it should be allowed to do whatever it's doing without going into the Section 230 stuff.
Sure.
They basically said that as long as everybody sat there and had their own space, it doesn't really matter if they moderate their content, and they can kind of do that. The only problem is, as we've seen here with the purge that they just did, which was a massive purge. What was it? A couple million accounts? Yeah, they're still doing.
Oh, fuck. I'm losing followers.
Yeah, I've lost follow noticeably. Even.
So in any case, their current purge is basically the result of the purge was that everybody was like, well, fuck it. I might as well go to Parler anyways, because Twitter's turned into an ideologues shithole where nobody can actually sit there and participate in any actual discussion. So we might as well go somewhere else. And Parler has been the top choice for. I'm not sure how the collective makes this decision, but they've branded themselves.
It's because Dan Bongino bought it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's because it's Dan Bongino's baby now.
Okay.
I mean, this has been the case, mind you, since before the election.
Now there are multiple services like Twitter. Parler is one, Minds is another, Gab is a third. I think there's a couple others in there. There's
several others. Mastodon would be a drop-in replacement.
Right.
Just as another example.
So the bottom line is that they were all basically doing the same thing. Character-limited services where you could post whatever the fuck it is that you want.
Microblogging.
Right, exactly. There you go. That's a good way to put it. Microblogging. In any case, what ended up happening though is now we're dealing with the fact that basically Twitter has worked with various other organizations and said, well, if you want to leave Twitter, that's too fucking bad. We're just going to ban everybody else besides Twitter. Because if you think that Parler getting banned, like Gab faced similar treatment. Right, but Gab is Gab. We talked about Gab. Gab kind of deserves it because Gab is.
Well,
they don't, but
they don't deserve it. But
they don't.
Problem.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
They're getting it though. It doesn't matter what they deserve. They're definitely getting it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Parler was this like free speech alternative, and I think there's a couple things that I saw.
Like they say they're free speech. So this one's funny.
Yeah, their
they
terms
say they're free
are,
speech. Yeah.
But they don't allow.
They're Christian puritanical though.
They really are.
So if you go on there and you and say you posted a naked woman, you're getting kicked. Now here's the cool thing though. They actually tell you kind of what the limits are. If you get reported by your peers 20 times, then you have a problem. You lose your account.
Yep.
But also let me rephrase that. If you get 20. If 20 times you're reported by your peers and moderation decides you were a bad person, then you lose your account. So you actually get like a number associated with it that you can look at and go, okay, I had this many strikes, and 20 times is pretty good. I'll give that. It's okay.
I don't know. I mean, again,
it could be like
certainly better than shadow banning.
They have other restrictions like lewds, nudity, those
kinds
of things aren't allowed. I think there's limitations on cussing. That's
allowed. That was the thing.
Apparently not.
Error, what the hell?
That's slurs.
So it was something at you guys both know who Bats is. The guy from the other group, and sometimes on Twitter. His handle is pray for the Batman.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So he went on to here on Parler. I think he said something about like someone in Congress and something involving breast milk, and lost his account. On Parler, he got kicked.
Huh.
That's the thing that I don't like about Parler. That's the thing that I don't like about Parler is that they are.
And I said titty sprinkles. I said titty sprinkles and it didn't get kicked. And so the question is, somewhere between titty sprinkles and suggesting a Florida Congress critter drinks breast milk or something is the line, and we don't know where it is between there that it exists.
That's the part that really bothers me. And realistically, like when Twitter was beginning its service, it actually kind of stayed out of the culture wars.
It did.
Now, free speech was a free speech party.
It was 2012. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that like overall, Twitter. So I have a tendency, probably more than these guys, to be closer to the left than I am to the right.
I'll be right back.
So in any case, I tend to sit closer to the left and the right than these guys, but I'm really very close to the middle, and ultimately I like all of the stuff on the left, and I like all the stuff on the right. I don't like the censorship in anything. Yeah, I'm a leftist from the 80s. There you go. But Twitter was pretty good for that, right? Like, you could have your mixture of lewd content, and then on the other side, you could have your mixture of, like socially respectable stuff. And then you could have the left-right dialogue. And then all of a sudden, circa 2016, they turned around and they changed that to not... I think it actually started in 2014 with the block bots. The block bots really, like, all of a sudden
block bots and the people calling in favors.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of the issue was Randy Harper, and she started the... I'm pissed at her. I actually had good conversations with her, too, right? Like, we were reasonably decent human beings. But she's the first blockbot person. Her blockbot was designed to, basically, they turned around and they said, okay, if you're on this list, and anybody you follow is on this list, you're banned. And that was how they operated, right? So that was Randy Harper's blockbot, and it basically screwed any of us who were building accounts that were supposed to be middle or moderate type folks. And then all of a sudden, after that happened, then a whole bunch of people sat there and got the ear of Twitter because they argued that they were anti-harassment, right? And they got the ear of Twitter because Twitter, you got to understand the social media companies, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You don't want to have an open platform where you can get the shit kicked out of you online because there are problems with that. Social media is a toxic, non-normal social behavior.
All right, I am back.
And the bottom line is that when they turn around and they dealt with this platform, they're trying to sit there and deal with mitigating the damage they do. But the problem that you have is the anti-bullying crowd were really the people who are stirring up shit, and then they didn't like dealing with a reprisal of stirring up their shit.
A lot of those people are so fucking toxic, and they're bullies.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, no, horrible. There's what was the
evil people?
The one group of people that went around actually trying to get people killed. Or no, trying to get people to kill themselves.
There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of those.
Squad.
So which one?
It was the one that Zoe was in.
Zoe was in a lot of these.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it was like famous.
Are you talking about what she called her organization, her anti-bullying organization?
No, the actual bullying one.
You're talking about the one that there was the one she was in. Oh, you mean Hell Dumps?
Hell Dumps, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
That's the one.
When she went after Wizard Chan to make fun of all the poor versions on Wizard Chan.
Yeah, all the guys who didn't get laid.
Yeah, tried to get them to off themselves.
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who have no idea who Zoe Quinn is, right?
That's good, because they shouldn't...
Bless you. Bless you, fortunate souls.
No need to enlighten them.
The reason that we all know each other is basically this chick. She basically created the world's shittiest version of HTML scripting. She didn't even create the HTML scripting.
No. It's not even that. It's done. It's an app that you can. It's a thing that you can type shit into to set up a choose your own text adventure.
Yes, it is a choose your own adventure book.
It'll generate everything. It'll generate everything for you. It's JavaScript based, and it's all on one HTML page. It's not even a game. It's literally you click the button and it does a little bit of rearranging on the page to move you to the next quote page in the thing.
almost a choose-your-own-adventure. Almost.
So she wanted to call this a game, and as shitty as Craig's game is, and I've seen Craig's game, right? As shitty as that game is, this is legitimately worse. I didn't think it was possible, Craig. I really didn't.
I'm surprised you did. I
was, at least Craig's game has graphics. It may be asteroids level of graphics, but it's fucking graphics. So Zoe Quinn's is literally like an HTML hypertext page that is created by a program she didn't write, dealing with a story that she didn't use any sources or references for, and it was all entirely based around depression. Like, this is a whirlwind of nobody in their right mind would ever play this thing. And I don't mean that from, a snotty gamer thing.
We did a stream on that.
Did you actually, play the game?
Dude, well, so
I
it's
tried.
funny. It's funny.
I got
thing.
to the
we
third
actually
page before I got bored.
I think I told you. So I tried to get the goddamn recording, but the person whose channel we did it on, he deleted the fucking video, and we were so mad at him when we found out that he did that. We had Mercedes Carrera come on.
Oh, she has a weird voice.
No, we had her come on because we thought maybe she could make it more entertaining. No.
By the way, this
person
who has been removed from society now for 2 years without trial is a porn star. For reference. as to why they thought it would be more interesting.
Well, we're just maybe she could she saw that we were doing this and we and somehow that someone else got her attention and somehow she got on. Okay, maybe let's see where this goes. Maybe it'll actually get funny or something. Nope, it was just as bad.
There's no way.
She tried doing a sexy voice thing for it, or it's this is so much the same.
And it wasn't
can't be improved.
So in any case, Zoe Quinn's game here, right? We rag on it all the time, but she got a ton of press conference or press stuff for it. She got published in video games. She got awards, and nobody could really understand where the hell this came from. Well, it turns out she was sleeping with every single person.
What had happened at that point was she just got a lot of coverage, and from 5 different authors. Male authors. 5 male authors provided her with articles.
She was sleeping with everybody who gave her positive press coverage. Either
allegedly.
Before they gave her positive press coverage,
definitely,
or after they gave her public press coverage. But
allegedly, my aching ass.
It was always within a week or so of it. And, she did things like destroy entire shows because of the drama that came in her wake. She's a classic cluster B personality. Narcissist, Machiavellianism, the whole bit.
Oh, and let's not forget she's now a he or something, I guess, even though that's never going to actually happen surgically.
I mean, so this is what kicked off Gamergate, which is how all of us kind of know each other, because we all moved up into a sphere of influence within a movement of a whole bunch of pissed off people who are dealing with this chick who was calling them fucking, all these names, racist, nerds. Basically, she'd attack us on one front and then sit there and run away and say that we were bullying her when we said, hey, don't be a cunt on the other front. And that is who Zoe Quinn is.
I didn't say so much don't be a cunt as you're a giant cunt, but it kind of came down to that, yeah.
I mean, it includes things like, I got into it, and this is my background. I came into it because that was at the time when I was still reading crack.com, which has been a very, very long time since then.
Oh.
And she got to write an article on crack.
It's a funny thing.
It was supposed to be a funny thing, but it had moved to crazy liberal crap.
Yeah.
Sometime before that, it wasn't a big sacrifice. It wasn't a big sacrifice to give up crack.com. By the time 2014 came around. But she was claiming things like revenge porn. Well, it turns out the quote-unquote revenge porn that she was accusing her ex of was the fact that she'd actually attempted to get pornographic shots of herself on the web, and a whole bunch of people found them Basically said, yeah, this is the chick who's maligning us.
Here's the revenge porn that happened. They found her photos, paid for them, and then spread them around.
That's exactly correct. The photos that she was paid to
No hacking took place. She was on a fucking porn site.
She was. And people basically...
These photos will never get out. I'm getting paid for this. What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not even like you're working at a club where they say no photos. I mean, you're putting it all out there, quite literally, and it's on the internet, and the internet is forever. So
yes, and it was stuff like what was it? She screwed over the photographer. There was a whole litany of like she has basically fucked everyone who has attempted to cover her in any way.
You know what
she has been trying to make a name for herself for a decade.
You know what she seems like is a slightly less successful AOC.
You know what? When there is dolls or whatever it is page for AOC, I'll be impressed.
Yeah, AOC's OnlyFans. You know what'll happen? Is she'll auction off the next set of shoes she gets. Since the first set got stolen. Oh my god. No, can you imagine the kind of I bet you if I went to eBay right now and looked up like AOC shoes.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a thing, by the way. Apparently
I know
all her shoes
nothing
got
about
stolen.
what you are referencing.
I mean, that's it. Apparently all her shoes got stolen that were at the Capitol.
That's what happened. That's all.
How many shoes did she have in the
Apparently a fair amount, at least more than 2 pairs.
So she's been getting gifted by all kinds of fashion designers. All kinds of stuff. All these dresses and shit she's wearing.
Yep.
Even her fucking silk face mask, which, by the way, doesn't work.
Yeah, silk is not an adequate protection device. That is like ASDM -2.
There you go.
Well, I mean, I deal with these people all the time who want to say, hey, masks work. And we've talked about it pretty extensively here.
Okay.
The reality...
I'm going to stop you right there because you're doing it again, you asshole.
I'm not doing anything.
You're saying mask. You're saying mask as if I'm not going to pick a bone with that shit.
You can pick whatever bone you want. You have so many caveats to get your shit to work that it's like...
ASTM level 2 or better.
Right.
If you're going to do anything less than that...
So not masks.
Yeah, except what are they? Go ahead, tell me. What comes after ASTM level 2? Tell me.
Yeah,
huh?
Yeah.
Mask, that's
subset.
right.
It's a subset. It doesn't count. And even then...
It doesn't count. Yeah, fuck you.
It doesn't count. Because at the end of the day, all of these orders for quote-unquote masks, everybody thinks that they can put a fucking cloth face piece over their face, and they're good to go. That's all right. That's what masks mean.
This is also the downside. The cloth masks, which were long suspected to do absolutely nothing useful.
They don't just do nothing useful, my man. They actually increase infection rates.
Specifically make things worse. And we know why, and you can deduce why normally, but if you're an engineer, you definitely know why. It's because as soon as the surface saturates, and which by the way doesn't mean it soaks the interior. You don't have to have a soaked face mask for the surface to be saturated. As soon as it saturates, the surface becomes a little shear surface for droplets to get micronized off of it. And this little micro wind tunnel that you've created through the woven cloth.
I mean,
so
not to mention the fact that you've created a warm, moist environment with food particulates that's UV sheltered.
And these people aren't fucking washing their masks every day or every couple hours. Are you kidding me? I gotta do the same thing everyone else does. And just take it off and hang it up.
So as we can all agree, masks don't do anything. You need specific...
You're gonna keep saying this shit.
You're right, I am.
I'm gonna keep telling you you're full of it.
Because the big old category of that is masks doesn't do anything. It's a very specific subtype. So if you want to say ASTM level 2, we could debate that. That's a reasonable debate.
So anyway, whenever I go ahead and I say something on Twitter or whatever, I'll go ahead and specify which masks I mean. And
no, you don't.
Then you'll come in like a little shit and go, Yeah, we can all agree masks don't work.
That's exactly right. I do. Because you don't specify.
Oh, no. I do. I specify,
No,
you
you
little
don't.
shit. I say it's like a goddamn mantra from me right now.
I love
level
it.
2 or level 3.
Every single time you don't specify.
Okay, so let's just put this out
I'm there
there.
Right for you.
If Craig or myself is talking about masks and not saying that they don't work, it's because we're talking about the ones that do.
Yeah, but that doesn't really matter. So at the end of the day, I will always correct the masks do things because the masks do not.
Well,
a specific subtype might do
Well,
something.
you know what you can't refute? You cannot refute the mimetic power of the functionality of the mask. The faith in the mask alone is enough to make it more functional.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. That's okay. You know what?
There are people that need help, and apparently they're not getting it. And their current help is to go and bow before somebody who comes out and says "science says," as if that actually means something.
Yeah, that's a whole separate argument. So for people who don't know, the bowing before people who say "science says" are folks who believe in scientism, which is not the same thing as science. It is a belief in science, which is not the same thing as actual science.
Speaking of belief in science and actual science, let me remind everyone that Dolph Lundgren is eminently more qualified to speak on science than Bill Nye.
Yes. That's because Dolph Lundgren actually has a fucking master's in chemical engineering.
Who is Dolph Lundgren?
He's the Russian from Rocky 2. 3?
Oh.
He's also the big Russian guy from the Expendables 2 and Expendables 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Dolph Lundgren, that's why they were making jokes about him being a chemical engineer in the second one. He's actually a chemical engineer. He actually has a master's in chemical engineering from MIT, and he was there on Fulbright when he got discovered and started acting. Like, the guy is smart.
Well, I mean, Ashton Kutcher also has a chemical engineering degree, so
I'm not surprised that he knows how to make chemicals. I am not surprised by that at all. That actually explains quite a lot.
I remember when somebody told me that, and then he's like, "Yeah, I would have been an engineer, but I make more money as an actor." I'm like, God fucking damn it, we lose another one to money.
I mean, he's got a point and all, but at the same time, like, do you really? Like, you can't. You're gonna be. Is Ashton Kutcher gonna be the 74-year-old on screen? Is he?
Well, I mean, don't forget though, right? Like, if he makes all his money up front and then he invests it properly,
well, then yeah,
better than either of us will.
Again, I have to ask though: is that really gonna happen?
I don't know.
Speaking of investment,
I think the amount of money that he makes buys a whole lot of cocaine.
Or between the three of us,
and I think you'd still have money left over for investment.
And if you have enough of that, you can trade 24/7.
That's exactly right.
But just to make a point here on money, if everyone that listens to this, maybe tomorrow or the next day,
gives me $1.
I
would have 50 cents.
$7, maybe. Maybe even 8. But but no. If everybody that is listening to this had spent their original stimulus check on Bitcoin and cashed it out last week, you would have a lot of money.
Or hell, fuck it. Not even that. If you spent all that money on put options in the current market, because if you didn't notice, the market's taken a little bit of a nosedive recently.
Has it really? At least the stuff I've been watching has still been going up. And it's really
irritating. But it's crazy, though.
It had a little bit of a heart attack recently with Biden getting confirmed.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen that in the numbers that I've been watching. But I mean, either way, like if you'd invested it, you would have done very, very well. There's literally any number of ways you could have spent the first check. And I know a lot of people sit there and get, like, you listen to Tim Pool and he throws a hissy fit.
A lot of people did spend it on rent, which I totally understand.
Yep.
And then they got shafted for the next 8 months. I'll take care of one, but fuck you.
I know you listen, like I listen to Tim Pool, and he rails against these checks. But at the same time, if you use the money appropriately, like you trade long-term debt for short-term debt, and you basically pay that off with or you trade short-term debt for long-term debt, which, by the way, is not much different than quantitative easing, you're actually not in a bad spot. But at the same time, we are, every single time we rate these checks, it comes with a whole package of things that you're paying for.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. If I could just burn that money and then none of it would go to people that hate me or other dumb shit, I would gladly do so.
So this has been my argument from the very beginning on it, too. So there's two sides to this. At the very start of it, the principal position and the logical position is that we never should have had the lockdowns beyond the time frame where a lockdown would have made sense. A lockdown would have made sense at the very beginning, not even just like the 2-week thing. It would have made sense at the very beginning if we had a real lockdown, not like here's all these little circumstances where you can still go out and do whatever the fuck. If you had a real lockdown for a month to 2 months and then stopped, you would have gotten rid of the thing. That didn't happen, and it probably wasn't going to have happened.
There's no way to make it happen, right?
Regardless of practicality measures there, what that then necessitates is that you allow people to just go out and do their fucking jobs and make money and live because people have to eat.
Yes.
And that becomes real important after 1 month, let alone a fucking year of this shit. So, like, the position I had back then was, look, if you're gonna do this, do it right or don't do it. And if you're gonna do it, you need to compensate people for the time they lost, and then move the fuck on.
I entirely agree with Craig on this. At the end of the day, if you don't turn around and you don't sit there and do it all or nothing, it doesn't mean anything, because you're still creating the avenues for the virus to spread.
So then you're pissing in the ocean, as it were.
What they then did, though, this is the thing I was saying about the money part of it, is you don't limp along and then give people the fucked up promise that they might get a fucking check if only the other side of the aisle would agree with everything they wanted on their Christmas list.
God, yes!
So you're sitting there for fucking 9 months telling people, yeah, you're going to get $600, you're going to get $2,000, you may as well get a fucking $1 million. You're getting zero. These people are going to sit, and then they're going to turn around now and then spend your great-grandkids' money away.
Well, I mean, and it's not just
like it's an insult to injury.
Money.
It's an insult to injury that they're even going to bother to do a check now. They should just let you go out and earn your living, and then deal with the pitchforks and torches later, because these people's asses are on the line now. And if anything, this capitalist riot thing has been a wake-up call that you can get fucked with.
Fundamentally, this has been, my position has always been preserve the economy. Because the costs of doing a lockdown are not particularly, you don't get the benefit out of not doing the lockdown. And especially if you're doing it half-assed. You get nothing out of that. All you're really doing is doing wealth transfer from the people who are poor and working class all the way up to the people who are super wealthy.
This is where we had a mild
theater. Don't forget, you're jingling your keys so that everybody can see a nice little jangle. You're doing your dance.
Fucking A, man.
So here's the thing we were disagreeing about a little bit before, and this is where I was saying this. Like, if you did a real lockdown, it's important because the medical fallout of this is going to hit the economy hard, regardless
all of that's
of
true.
Historically, if you look at the way these things have worked, the economy is going to bounce right back if we do a lockdown. If we kind of have a hiccup and we took care of this shit early, we would have bounced right back. And we actually saw that the kind of potential that would have had under Trump last year, when the economy did bounce back with the best growth numbers after the worst losses.
All of that's true. The fundamental problem, though, is that we can't actually do a true lockdown.
Right, so we have to focus on hospital mitigation. So again, this comes down to a personal liberty issue for me, where you're an adult, you can make your adult decisions.
If we had turned around,
you're responsible for them too.
The choice that was before our political leaders back in, February, March timeframe was shut down the entire economy for, let's give it a whole month.
Sure.
Which is not technically feasible, but that would be one thing and then we'd be done with it. Or to sit there and just do nothing. And that was really the two options presented. And they said, well, let's make a fucking compromise. So we will accomplish none of the goals of a lockdown in the first place and do all of the damage.
What happened was
going in perpetuity.
What happened was the Democrats decided that let's do the thing that will hurt Trump the most. And then lo and behold, it fucked over their constituents more than it hurt Trump.
I actually agree with Craig on this. I think the primary reason they kept on doing it was because it hurt Trump. The only problem is, and this is the key, in order to sit there and justify it, they basically had to scare the shit out of everybody who was participating, and they did that. And the consequence is that they now can't undo it. They can't pull out of the nosedive because they told everybody on the plane we need to do a nosedive.
It's the thing I was just talking about, and I linked it into the chat. I think I did. Did I? Or maybe I just copied the fucking link. There we go. Okay, so there's the tweet. So the tweet I'm responding to is the important one. And this person says things conservatives think are not human rights. And like the fucking list is food. And then the next one is shelter. And it's like, okay, hold on a minute. Let's go back to April when Ava Whitler over there in Michigan, fucking useless
Frau
person.
Whitmer?
Yeah, it's a play on Androlf Goldmler.
I suppose I should say Uberfrau Whitmer.
She's his Ava Braun. In Michigan in April, you literally weren't allowed to buy your own seeds to grow food at your own house. That was deemed an unessential item and therefore beyond your purchase power.
But
the same shit was happening over in California.
Buy some booze.
The same so you're allowed to buy booze. You're allowed to buy lottery tickets. You're allowed to go to a restaurant. But only if you sit outside and wait for them to come out with delivery. You're not allowed to grow any of your own fucking food. The same shit was going on in California. The same shit was going on, I believe it was in New Jersey. And you know what was going on? Like these places, they're having these gigantic problems figuring out what they're allowed to do, where they're allowed to do it. There was no unified messaging from these people.
Well,
of course, you were also encouraged to riot.
And also, it was also a geographic thing with Whitmer because in certain places she says, okay, you're not allowed to go on vacation here. She went ahead and went on vacation there because fuck you, that's why.
Oh, that's what she was saying. She didn't want people to see her. That's why she told places where she didn't want people to see her.
The place she was doing this was mostly conservative people, whereas a lot of the Democrat people, a lot of the liberal people were in the cities where they weren't even going to be traveling out anyway.
I think at the end of the day,
a political ideology that was at play for her delineated boundaries for movement instead of where the fucking virus was.
I think at the end of the day, there's two things here. One is if you really want to know what the actual elites think about this virus, watch their behaviors. And what you find is that they don't do any of the stuff that they're recommending for everybody else.
No.
And that kind of disconnect means that they don't actually believe what they're saying. They're essentially lying to
what they really think is that you're stupid enough to not ask questions.
Right, exactly. In this case, with this dude that you responded to on human rights, this is something that really pisses me off. At the end of the day, none of those things that they sat there and they decided to toss out there are actual rights. Because
here's the thing, they all require you to do something.
Right. Fundamentally, when we start talking about rights, the thing about rights is that rights are things that are free. They don't cost any. It doesn't require anyone to sit there and give you free speech. It requires that you don't.
Tell that to somebody in New York trying to buy a gun.
Right.
I mean,
tell that to somebody in New Jersey trying to travel through.
These things, a lot of them are things other people do for you.
Yes,
is what they're demanding. They're demanding someone else provide free labor, and that is slavery.
Yes, exactly. And that's the fundamental argument that I've been having against these people who are sitting there and arguing that everybody sits there and is opposed to human rights. Because fundamentally, what they're essentially arguing is that we should be providing free labor.
Or here's the thing. How about healthcare? How about healthcare? What fucking reason would a doctor have to do anything for you if you're not paying them? Like what? Why would they bother? Like, why is a surgeon going to go digging around in your guts and sew you back up again?
I mean, it's simpler than that. At the end of the day, you have the right to go get food. That just means getting out, grabbing a rifle, and hunting what the fuck you need. Growing.
Or how about, that's the thing I was getting to. Just grow your own food.
These people who live in megacities, right, they suffer needlessly. Because they live in these areas where they aren't capable of providing for themselves. They require all of these services to be provided for them in order to survive. And you turn around and you say, well, that's a right. Well, no. If you actually moved outside...
Well, they also sneer down at you if you're one of the people providing it.
Yeah,
if you're one of the people providing the food, they're going to sit there and say, yeah, but your vote shouldn't count.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they're trying to do. No, this is brilliant. What the fuck his name is? Senator Cohen is introducing a resolution, or Representative Cohen? Doesn't matter.
Which state?
It doesn't fucking matter. The guy's introducing a resolution, basically demanding an abolishment of the EC. So he wants the electoral college gone, because apparently the entire country should respond to the popular vote, which comes out of what? Less than 500 counties now, or less than 50 or whatever the fuck it is.
Well, all of these megacities, right? They're building up, and they're entirely engineered landscapes, and I think that's the appropriate way to actually describe them, because these places are unnatural. These are not the kinds of places where you can actually get a decent yield, or you could survive on your own. You require other people doing their job in order for you to survive.
Biden won 477 counties. That's it. That's the sum total.
Well, I mean, out of how many though, right? So you should always do it in relative rates, man. I know, but you are.
I am a stickler. I am a stickler for this shit too.
As much as you are an engineer, just as much as I am. It doesn't matter how many the actual physical number he won, as much as it is the relative rate. The relative rate is only the only statistic that matters in any.
Okay. Blah blah blah. Joe Biden. Blah blah blah. Votes came from 509 counties.
3,006 counties in
16.7% of the nation's counties. There. That avoids me having to find the real fucking number.
That is the real number, 3,006.
A record low 17% of counties.
I tried to look it up, and then I accidentally entered counties in New York, because realistically, both of you guys live in flyover states, so what the fuck do I care?
Yeah, Florida's not a flyover state.
Well, you fly over it to get to Cuba.
It's fly over, but in a different direction.
You're correct, because if we fly over Florida, we hit the ocean.
I mean, unless you're going to like Mexico City or some shit.
There are 3,007 counties in the United States.
Or if you get a direct fucking flight from LaGuardia to Buenos Aires.
3,243, and he won 400 of them.
477.
Out of 3,243.
Yeah. That's it.
A
record low. Obama in 2008 won 873 counties.
I mean, the problem that you have, though, right, is that these counties, these city counties like New York City or LA or any one of these major cities, they're increasing their population without increasing the landmass. And I totally, one of the things that I think Democrats don't understand is I actually get where they're coming from, whether it be environmental issues or human rights issues. They're pretty much fucked, right? They did a study, the rats of Nim here, right? And we actually there was this whole was it Fievel and the rats of Nim or whatever, the rats of Nim.
No, it's Frisbee.
Was it Frisbee?
This is Frisbee and the rats of Nim.
Yes. In any case, this is an actual. So they did this film, and it's terrifying. All I remember about it was terrifying. and it was actually based off of a real study of rats, which are the closest human analogs that we have in alternative species. They live essentially like
communal life. Yeah, sure.
Right. So what they found when they did this is that the higher populations they got is essentially you get social order breakdown. And so if you
they put them into the cage and they fed them all the food they could ever want, all the water. They made sure to get rid of the waste, and they overpopulated and totally fucked over their cage. That's an understatement.
Do you want to go? Do you want to go within in some of the more details there?
So they had the fun ones where some of the rats just wouldn't mate, and they got all lethargic and depressed.
That would be what we now call asexuals in our society.
Right, or just incels. Because some of them also tried to mate and got rejected. Some of them just ate their neighbors.
The significant amount of homosexuality within the whole entire group, as well as basically the entire social order of rat society broke down when you provide unlimited food and water to these things, and that's what we're seeing in these cities.
So it's analogous and not analogous at the same time.
Yes, it is.
Like in
it's
part of that was being part of it was being facetious, but all of the things that we just said were true about the study.
Yes.
And rats were like some of the rats were just eating their neighbors. Some of them would just huddle together and then just do nothing.
Yep.
And just hang out and sleep. And then others, and the ones that were mating, they were like hyperbreeders. They would go around and basically fuck everything.
So Tinder, by the way, if we actually take a look at the statistics for Tinder, that's essentially how rats operate. Is there's a handful of people on Tinder who end up basically getting somebody every night, and then there's the rest of the people who get nobody ever. And that's what's ended up happening in these cities is they have all of this food and they have all of these services, and so they're kind of starting to expect unlimited food and unlimited water, and they don't understand the effort that goes into it. So what ended up happening?
Some do understand because they started Chaz.
Fair.
You're correct.
And they tried to garden, and I'm going to use that term very liberally.
Listen, Humanor is a real resource that we are not properly developing.
So the rat analogy is interesting, but like it doesn't really hold so much. But like it's enough of an analogy that has enough common features with shit we're seeing day to day that it's kind of spooky. It's not predictive really because we weren't around for the collapse of Rome, but like
the arguments for the rats of Nim, the arguments against the rats of Nimstad are that rats are unaware of their surroundings and therefore will engage in this behavior. The only problem is that arguably people who are in cities are unaware of their surroundings, and we're kind of
ask anybody from LA about anywhere else on the planet, and you're gonna get a really dumb answer.
I mean, talk about look. I live in New York, but everybody assumes that we're all from the fucking city, and the city operates entirely different than the rest of the state.
Well, and everybody could usually be right.
I mean,
considering most people that are from the state and don't live in the city tend to not really venture outside the fucking state.
Well, I think it's something like New York City. They only the maximum, the average area that they know is something like six blocks or something.
Which is sad.
It is very sad. That's the maximum travel distance that people in New York City have is something like 6 blocks. I'm not sure. I can't guarantee that 100%, but I remember
can probably tell you 6 blocks and a hole in the wall place to go down in Chinatown or Little Italy to get decent food.
Maybe.
And then maybe a place to go see the movies.
But I think it's something like within that everybody in the average in New York City has the maximum extent they've ever traveled is 6 blocks. And that's the average. Now obviously there's people who are way outside of that, but at the same time the average is something like 6 blocks. So they work, they commute, they live within 6 blocks of the radius that they were born. And that is kind of screwed up.
Yeah, no, that really is. I mean, you want to talk about a bubble. It might be a big bubble with a lot of people in it, but it's still a hell of a bubble.
Well, I mean, this fundamentally comes down to the question of, do people actually entertain themselves, or are they able, or do we require a deeper purpose?
I demand people entertain me.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me, Craig.
That is a human right. And,
well, I mean, we're all on Twitter, so,
I don't see why I haven't been provided with my own minstrels.
Listen,
dude,
if
reading
the world was
Twitter
up to me, Craig, if the world was up to me, Craig, the entertainers would be a slave class.
I mean, they're paid enough money, like they're effectively given the final of the infinite resources they need in the rap megalopolis.
That's exactly right. Like, I see no
reason
why...
And they cry in their fucking McMansions during the pandemic, but they don't have their crowd of characteristic assholes from fucking Fifth Element, you know, how super green they are.
Ugh.
What kind of green am I? Any shade of green you want. Fucking losers.
We truly live in a society, fellas.
Somehow we have managed to make it through this entire episode bitching about everything except what's happened in the last week. I think that we should take a moment that we turned around and we all collectively agreed that we weren't going to talk about science this episode, that we were just going to bitch. We were going to use it as a venting session, and somehow we haven't even talked about anything that happened in the last week.
Okay, no. We did. We talked about AOC's 40 pairs of shoes.
Nobody gives a shit about shoes. A, I'm a dude, and B, I'm an engineer. If I am clothed, you are fucking lucky when you talk to me.
Hey, that's the best part about working from home.
That's the best part about being an engineer. We aren't held to normal social standards.
Yeah, we're barely shaved monkeys is what we are.
We're the motherfuckers who come out of the troll cave and cast fucking magic.
Oh God, it must seem like that sometimes.
I really do believe.
What are these strange symbols, good sir? They're why everything around you works. Oh God, this must be magic.
I really have no doubt that, like, the normie that comes up to an engineer and turns around and says that we're wrong, it's literally got to be like a scene out of The Exorcist, where all of a sudden you realize that you are utterly outclassed by an otherworldly entity. And they're going to explain to you not just why you're wrong, but every single aspect of your logical conclusion that has come before you, and why you are inferior from birth. And that is what an engineer does.
That is to say, you have failed. Not only me, but yourself.
God, that fucking meme is good.
You have failed not only me, but yourself, and your parents would probably have better off had they not copulated in the first place.
That award you no points, and may God help you.
But yes, we have...
Crossing the streams there.
Look, we've still managed to make it another, 5 minutes without talking about...
All right. So a bunch of Trumpansies decided they were going to bolt into the Capitol building. And lo and behold, there were cameras.
And
now a lot of them are getting charged because they were fucking retarded. But you see, it couldn't have been that they would have gone after everybody. No, apparently having a pipe bomb at both the RNC and the DNC was not enough for the likes of AOC, who decided. By the way,
that was the thing. They found explosive devices at both the DNC and the RNC. Both were evacuated.
You know, I'm okay with both of those things.
Pipe bomb.
I have no issue with any of that.
I personally disavow it.
No.
I don't disavow it, motherfuckers. I believe
you don't have
Jefferson
to, but I would recommend
the
for the sake of your interaction with the Secret Service
with the blood of the political class.
Hold on. All right, Fire and Brimstone, calm your shit down. The point that I was going to make there is that before you start providing fertilizer, it's a good thing to give give the tree a shake every once in a while and knock some of the dead branches out.
Yeah, we tried that.
No, we haven't done that quite yet. The pipe bombs didn't go off.
I give you Trumpansies, and I accept that as a perfectly legitimate perspective on the political
that was
events.
A good one. Come on.
That was a good one. I give you that. They are Trumpansies because I hate them.
Because they're behaving like fucking animals.
But at the same time, I firmly believe that it is the best interest of this nation to put some fear of fucking God in the political class every once in a while.
Oh, sure.
Right?
I think that right now, as it stands, I think they shouldn't get a paycheck until
I agree.
Until the rest of the people are fucking until we balance the budget.
Until the pandemic is over, minimum.
I think that
for every month that people get fucked out of a check.
Our politicians should have their pay limited to the bottom 25% of society. Whatever the average pay of the bottom 25% of their state is, that's the maximum pay they'll get. Not this $180,000 to go be a representative in Congress.
So here's the thing about that.
Fuck that. You want to say that you represent the bartenders? You get your $20,000 a year, and you.
I love the justification for it is that it's so expensive to live there. It's like okay, I got a way to solve this then. You guys should get your own cafeteria, and you should get fucking dormitory housing. And if you say no to that, then I know you're fucking with the country.
Well, that's a completely fair.
Because get that. That's free housing for you.
No, fuck it.
Free
fuck
shit.
It. If their employees have to find rent, they should have to find rent in two places at the same salary that they get for the bottom 25% of their population.
No,
and if they have to live on the goddamn motherfucking street because they've locked down every business.
You got gifted an entire fucking floor in a building in New York City, right? And then she went in there and acted surprised when she turned on the fucking sink disposal.
Oh my god, yes.
What the fuck was that shit?
What is this magical device? Why is it making noise?
Yeah,
damn.
I'm sorry.
And after she grew up in the lap of fucking luxury just up the road there.
I mean, you'd think she'd have heard something like that working as a barista.
It's probably because she never had to go to the goddamn kitchen in her house in the first place, isn't it?
I am sure that in the case of AOC, that it is all theater, right? But AOC cannot be our only point here, and this is fundamentally where I think the Trumpanistas and Trumpansies.
All right, fine. Nancy Pelosi with her fucking let them eat ice cream. I'll have my vodka.
All of them, whether it be the left or the right. I'm okay with Ted Cruz being minorly uncomfortable for a little bit.
Sure. I'm sure he'd actually probably agree with taking a pay cut.
I am really okay.
I think he'd probably take an extra second to put the vote for yes, but I bet you he'd finally do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I'll give him credit. The Zodiac has really reformed since his old days.
It's crazy how much he has changed from that melted stick of butter I would never in a million years think of voting for, to the guy now who's a strict constitutionalist.
I will agree with that he has.
Speaking of, Trey Gowdy really bitched out, huh?
Gowdy, I don't blame him because he was getting death threats and shit.
Gowdy was...
He got to the wrong iceberg and tipped it over.
Gowdy is a loss to the Senate. Because Gowdy is terrifying. When you find out, when you listen to Gowdy and some of the earlier stuff that he did in the first 2 years that he was involved with the whole Trump thing, he is direct and to the point. I would love Gowdy to be, perpetually as the AG. He should have gotten rid of Graham and put Gowdy in. And said, Gowdy, you're going to be the fucking AG. You're going to take every motherfucker down. And Gowdy would have, because Gowdy was a douchebag, and he didn't care. And
what I loved with him was so circumspect questioning. I'm not a bright guy here, but if you could explain to me exactly why you're fucking guilty, that'd be great. And then they're like, oh, sure, let me tell you how the ways.
Gowdy was absolutely brilliant, and he was truly a loss from the Senate. I mean, death threats or no,
he wanted to be home with his family, which was his excuse. because he was basically getting in. Like, I'm pretty sure he would have been assassinated.
Why?
Because just look at what happened to Scalia. Sorry, I didn't say anything there.
He was getting too close to the Arkansas, if you will.
He was amazing, and I would have been happy to have him. I really would have. And I do agree with you. Ted Cruz has come a long way from where he was 4 years ago.
I still wouldn't vote for him for president right now. Although, like in 2024, maybe he'll improve like that much more.
Maybe.
But I think he would have been a.
But let's sit there and
I think he would have been a great SCOTUS pick. There we go.
Look, we talked in this podcast a couple of times about how we all kind of agree there was fraud. And we've talked about some of the methods that are true and that seem to be legitimately true based on our perspective and our understanding of mathematics and just the natural world as a whole, what looks like a legit argument and what doesn't. And there are things that look like legit arguments. And every single senator who turned around and said, I'm going to object when it's perfectly comfortable, but not when those Trump supporters come in and sit there and storm the Capitol, all of them should be fucking tossed out.
Yeah, you want to talk about people still in their true colors.
Putting on fucking theater for you guys.
My opinion
all they wanted is Trump supporter votes, and they had none of the actual stomach
to stand
my opinion
make
their argument.
My opinion is still the same here, and it fits the circumstance, with or without the fucking storming of the Hill. Or with or without them doing whatever the fuck they should have done in the joint session.
Right.
I still think that every incumbent should be out on their ass the next time around. There's no reason to have someone stick in.
I entirely agree.
Zero reason. Like, the best thing is, these fuckers are not even going to try and go to an amendment. They're going to try and skip Article 5 on this getting rid of the EC thing, because they know the first fucking thing up on the block is going to be their asses with term limits.
Well,
the country's fucking done with them sitting in there for 30, 50 fucking years like Biden, and then saying that someone else is the problem.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, just get the fuck out.
Yep. I
go home.
So
let me take your pay and leave.
If we're talking about things that I think are failures, I think that the 4-year term for the president is not sufficient. Right? And that's one of the only terms that I would actually not mind seeing extended to just a straight 8 years.
No,
I don't think I agree with that, but
like, if I could even compromise on maybe 5 or 6, but 8's way too much, and I still think 4 is a good number.
I mean, I'd be okay with 5.
I think they should only get 4.
You have to remember that you're working off of this last one being really weird, and basically everyone being completely against everything that this one was doing, where normally there would be some sort of working together. So, this last one.
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about if we want to talk about the biggest collapse of the United States, right? And that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at civil war. That's going to happen, right? We can't really.
I'm not so sure civil war is gonna fully break out before China decides to break out into fucking Europe.
I don't know.
I wouldn't say Europe, but I would say absolutely Taiwan.
They might. Well, see, that's the thing is if they go after Taiwan, they might bring in the U.S. They bring in the U.S., they're going to bring in Europe, and if they decide to go to the West instead, then they're going to bring in Europe anyway because they're going to go after Nepal, which is going to hit India, which is going to bring in the U.S. and Europe. They're surrounded by NATO triggers that still have interrelationships.
All of that doesn't sit there and solve the problem that we have, because we have a crisis of epistemology, right? We basically are dealing with fundamentally a disconnect in our actual communications between the right and the left. It's not one group that's at fault. I mean, really, it is one group
that's at fault. Hands are being slapped away here by whose teeth? We can take that point of view. Yeah, I'm not the one out there going, we need to kill Biden or whatever, and make sure that we bring in the fourth fucking epoch of the USSR.
I don't think we need to go there, but at the same time, I think that the fact that we are not sitting there and talking to one another,
right,
and the fact that the left has chosen routinely every single time that they could have just entertained conservatives and proven them wrong, they have chosen not to do that.
That's because they don't know how to fucking prove anything. All they know how to do is yell and bitch.
I agree. The left used to be really just the paramours of intellectual discourse, and they have fallen from that stature to basically nothing more than mediocre tribalists at best. But at the same time, I don't think that's, like, off the table. Like, I think civil war is an inevitability, regardless of whether something else comes in between now and then.
Well, here's the funny thing is if, say, China decided to go to war and the U.S. got pulled in, who the fuck do they think is going to go out there and do the dirty work? It's not going to be their sorry asses.
I mean, I think that China is more likely to try to hold off conflict as much as possible. I suspect, they are at the core of the disintegration in our discourse.
Well, this is the fun thing is they have to. So their idea was they're going to allow this thing like another week or so extra to burn out into the population, show up with medicine and be the saviors. Unfortunately, we had the vaccine way before they did, and that notwithstanding, all of their little attempts to get out there into the world and provide people with medicine and whatnot, all came with having to do deals with China, and also the fact that everybody already knew it was fucking China's fault.
Well, I mean, realistically,
so they tried.
China
to do that. They're trying to knock the U.S. off of being the global leader.
They are, but realistically, China is not at the point, militarily or technologically speaking, where they are able to take
openly
the
building.
US roles.
They are openly building. They're not just building up their army. They're building up nuclear arms, and they're building subs, and they're building warships. They're openly doing this. It's in the news for a reason.
They are
to rally around their nationalist causes and build up Xi, and also to send a message to the rest of the world that they're about to come for them.
They are,
and we would be stupid to ignore it.
We are at their shit.
Right? They have made.
They are absolutely
Taiwan
projecting right now.
Last year they made Taiwan do like. Last year they made Taiwan do like 2,500 air scrambles last year.
I mean,
That is many times per day, and those cost money. And they've been bringing in ships closer and closer through international waters and through sovereign waters.
They're always going to be doing that. They're always going to be doing that.
And through sovereign waters of Taiwan. They are actively trying to get Taiwan to poke first so they can drag the U.S. in prematurely.
China is absolutely attempting to sit there and disrupt global affairs. That is absolutely... First off, that's why we do what we do internationally. And we can't really talk too much about that, but there's actual reasons why the U.S. gets involved in the conflicts that they do. That being said, we... in the United States, have our own problems that are being exacerbated by a fundamental disagreement over epistemological basis.
And I want to actually bring something up specifically on the Taiwan issue. I don't know if you guys are familiar. You probably are, but just a few days ago, things were changed pretty substantially with...
Right, by Pompeo. Yeah.
Yes. They've basically erased all restrictions, and U.S. diplomats are urged to take full, unfettered, cooperative, just
it used to be
anything.
You had to go a roundabout when you were saying something positive about Taiwan and working with them.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a U.S. diplomat, you can just say, I like Taiwan. Fuck you,
this
China.
is basically the one China policy has just been thrown away. And
well, I mean,
I think it's great. Honestly, because Taiwan is better than China. China number 2. Well, actually, China is like number 7 or 8. But, between China and Taiwan and Hong Kong, China's number 3.
So China has a couple problems, right? One, they have to import pretty much all their food and all their energy, which is really what causes a society to grow. They've been speculating for a long time for resources. They've found some coal, but they really haven't found a lot of oil.
Well, they found a lot of coal in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah. The funny thing is, it's China,
don't
so
forget,
they probably found a lot of Chinese people there, right?
You in the United States and Australia and Great Britain, all of you can be conscious about climate change, but China doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's the thing, is according to the Paris Accord, and not to rehash this one too much here, but like the Paris Accord was a bunch of bullshit stapled together, and among those papers was China promising that by sometime in the 2030s they would stop increasing the rate of production of CO2. Maybe. That's their commitment to the climate change cause. They might stop. They might slow down the rate of increase in the new CO2 coming out. That's not they're gonna stop increasing the amount of CO2, but the rate of increase.
Maybe. Again,
well,
maybe.
If they can steal some good carbon scrubber technology between now and then, anyway.
Xi Jinping also just came out recently and said that they're going to commit, I think by 2030, to having being carbon neutral or zero carbon in their fuel economy. I don't see that happening unless they steal India's stolen nuclear technology and do their own thorium shit by just taking over the Indian subcontinent.
Well,
because they would need to in order to get all the thorium they need.
The Clintons already handed them all of our molten salt research. So, that ship has already sailed.
And they handed Russia a fifth of our production capacity for refined uranium, enriched uranium, which will be interesting. But they also could just go to their neighbors, Pakistan or Iran, and say, hey, let's take some of your 20% enrichment and move it over here, would you?
You're talking about the Uranium One deal.
Yeah, and I know it wasn't as big as I make it out to be.
It really isn't.
But it was a fifth of U.S. production of refined uranium.
But at the same time, what our listeners need to know is that the enrichment in the uranium that we can harvest in the United States is not as good as it is elsewhere. So ultimately, as much as we traded a huge amount of our uranium reserves, they are so dilute that the costs of producing them are greater than the actual value that they have. We would much rather grab our uranium for Australia, that's one of our major producers, and Africa, which is our second major producer.
But who's in Africa right now? Who's purchased 3/4 of that continent?
Yeah,
I know, and that's
that's
an issue.
Belt and Road policy as well has put down some really nice, we won't call them naval bases because they're docks and they're harbors for countries. They just, if they're not able to pay the $1 billion monthly fee, then China will just. They'll just control it for, just a couple of 99 years, and then...
fundamentally, the United States has completely abandoned a lot of our actual ground to China. We've ceded a ton of our righteous place to China.
Well, you could call it a fire sale.
It's not a fire sale, it's more like a whole bunch of idiots sitting there and being idiots together. Right? They're not... China's philosophy is a long-term gain. Right? Over short-term losses. So they're taking stuff from us that we don't see value in today that they might see 50 years out. And the problem is that they've been doing this for 20 years, so those rewards are starting to come in. And that's the issue that we have with China.
Well, one, anyway.
Okay, so, I don't follow these people very often, because I don't fucking care about anything they have to say, but this is hilarious. It's from Azalea Banks on Parler.
Oh, Jesus.
Which, why would she be on Parler in the first place? I have no idea.
Right. Who?
Okay, some rapper woman.
Yeah, I think so.
No, there's some white Australian woman that she got into a tiff over because, I don't know, someone stole lyrics or some shit, and somehow I had to be fucking told this by somebody. So now it's occupied a little corner in my brain. Anyway, The post, her Parler post, I think is really funny. It says, also, I'm really tired of these white men who think parroting liberal rhetoric from Twitter is somehow impressive or sexy to black women. Black women are extremely sharp and very aggressive. If we are dating any white men this year, they must be conservative. I like white men who exercise their white privilege and take full advantage of it. Who wants to sleep on a full-size mattress in a studio apartment with some liberal hipster wearing some stinky-ass thrift shop flannel and eating Trader Joe's curry while you listen to him complain about all the white guys who decided not to be a bum? Fucking pitiful.
Oh. Bravo.
That is beautiful.
Oh, that's magical.
Like, that's the kind of shit that makes me want to go and, like, buy one of her songs so I can not enjoy it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Well,
But that is just a refreshing take from somebody.
I
did not expect one from.
I pursue a perpetual policy of never supporting any art or entertainment in any way, shape, or form. The closest I will get is occasionally firing up Pandora, and even then I regret the fact that my advertising dollars go to them.
Yeah.
And remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, find a good ad blocker.
I mean, how can you watch this on YouTube? This is...
Oh, so here's a thought I had.
I really hope you're not watching this on YouTube, because there's a significant portion of me which is naked.
Well, I mean, you can't see it. It's just static image, but...
I'm just saying all the important bits are hanging out.
Well, I'm glad we're not on video.
I am too.
God. So, I actually had a thought of this that I thought I might bring up, especially now that I think we're towards the end of the show. So we haven't done anything at all interacting with the audience, like to take listener questions or anything.
Well, we have like 6 listeners.
Right. But, just in case there's a 7th out there who might have some thoughts, I don't know if this would be something you'd want to entertain or not. Evan, I mean, your show and all.
I mean, probably. I'd honestly like to do a live stream version of it if I had internet that would support it so that I could get live callers, but not really something I can do.
You Midwesterners, or Mideasterners, whatever.
He's between the two of us on the same coast, you dumbass.
Yeah, he might be between the two of us, but that doesn't mean Comcast supports, or whoever happens to control the cable. Stop, dog!
See? He knows you're fucking full of it.
The dog smells bullshit. I will give him that. That's his only positive trait.
Must be an engineer.
He may very well be. He probably does more math than I do.
Engineering
So I guess maybe that's something we can work into the next time if we get like a handful of questions. We can pick out a couple.
Yeah. So if anybody's listening, do message any of us with any questions for this, or hit me up on any of the Discords I'm on. I know a couple of the people that listen are actually on the same ones. Just message me.
Sweet.
But yeah,
as long as they're not questions about which dangly bits Steve has hanging out that we shouldn't be seeing.
Yeah.
Well, I assure you, it's both dangly bits. They're all hanging out.
You don't have 3 dangly bits? That's just upsetting.
It all depends, right? I mean, if I hold myself in the chair at the right angle, maybe I can get 3 danglies at odd angles.
Alrighty. Well, there you go.
Unfortunately, they're not all equally weighted because I'm never going to spin them.
Fair. So I know I said we probably wouldn't go off of any articles, but I actually do have one, and it's fairly interesting.
Okay.
And it's about a quadruple helix DNA that apparently exists inside of us right now. That's doing interesting stuff that we don't understand.
Probably.
Aliens. I'm going to go with aliens.
Ancient aliens.
Ancient aliens.
That's
yes.
right.
My hair is almost to the appropriate level of height to talk about ancient aliens.
Well, it has to also be wide, though.
Oh, okay. So G quadruplexes.
I I believe that I am one of the lost tribes of the Jews, so I have a white
Hebrew
robe.
Israelite?
Yes.
That's
right.
right. That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Nobody probably has any idea what we're talking about.
You'd be surprised about my audience. But people listening down the line, they might not. I hope they do, though, because Black Hebrew Israelites are a lot of fun.
They are a lot of fun.
I hope people listen to this episode like 10 years down the line if there's some sort of success that comes out of this.
I don't. I really don't.
Because they're going to come back and hear about fucking your dangly bits and Black Hebrew Israelites in the same 5 minutes.
I have to argue why it is that I should be part of a master's program come like the next 2 or 3 days. So I'd really be okay with nobody finding out about anything that I say.
I said like 10 years down the line, you're not going to be doing a master's then.
Yeah, you'll be well past that.
I should be done.
You can call yourself Master Steve at that point.
Yeah, you'll even have your doctorate by then, I'm sure.
You know what? Based on where I suspect the world is going, I'm really okay with it being, me being in the rumble cage because I'm pretty sure Mad Max is going to be like the theme of the next 10 years.
I swear, if we end up going down that road as a country, I'm still calling myself Doctor. Fuck that noise.
What are you going to be, Dr. fucking Strange? Like...
You know what? Fuck you,
You could always be Dr. Doom, put on a steel mask and all that stuff.
I figure...
Doctor, you're fucking wrong. That's what it's going to be.
I figure if shit hits the fan, my goal is to get enough people together that I have enough people who can shoot for me because I'm pretty terrible at shooting. My wife is so legitimately I have shot more off than my wife. I have merit badges that say I am qualified to fire whatever. And my wife is actually better than I am at it.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Friggin' A.
So, have you got your 3D printer up and working?
No. It still has it's got an ibuprofen bottle on there. It looks like a machine screw magnetic holder and a couple headphones stacked on top of it. I was really hoping that they would hold the Capitol. And if they held the Capitol, I would be 3D printing.
God.
But they got themselves
that wasn't going to ever happen.
I know, but they turned around and basically said, hey, whatever. Like,
if they got into the chamber, probably still not. But, it would have been more entertaining.
I think the biggest,
I think people getting in there close enough to throw ice cream at Pelosi would have been hilarious.
I still think it's funny they stole their laptop.
Somebody needs to throw some Ben & Jerry's at her.
They stole her laptop.
Ben & Jerry's, and maybe even
I'm really hoping
Stephen Colbert.
Something good comes out of the stolen laptop.
They stole her laptop, but they had her desktop with emails open right there and then. Somebody had to have had a USB key on them.
I entirely agree.
That would have been the time to just download, man.
Or just email. I'm sure that's
send all that shit to WikiLeaks. Send it all to WikiLeaks. There you go.
Boom. Hey, you guys might want this in your negotiation for your release from perpetually being in spy hell there. Here you go.
So this article, the most interesting thing to me is that these G quadruplexes, so 4-stranded DNAs, and you have these helicases. The interesting thing to me is that the helicase that's involved is capable of dealing with the G quadruplex, given the kind of the extra steric hindrance of having those 4 bands together. So all right. So you have the DNA wrapped up. Everybody knows the classic double helix structure of it. If you cut it in half, you have the strand is coming through 2 points on the circle.
You have, to put it really simply, it comes up like a zipper.
Right. So.
Well, I mean, that's yes.
But in a cross section, you have basically 2 points on a circle, and the distance between those 2 points is pretty important for the enzyme that comes coming down the line, unzipping things. So that distance is important because otherwise the 2 strands wouldn't fit inside the enzyme very well. So what's interesting is that these helicases. So helicase is the unzipping protein, or unzipping enzyme, it's capable of traversing. Unless it's a novel helicase that's specific to quadruplexes, that would be 4-stranded DNA. Then these helicases are capable of unwinding or unzipping 4 strands without much difficulty. So the distance between the points on the circle change when you add in 2 more points for a 4-stranded DNA. So because of that change in spacing, the enzyme shouldn't really necessarily work. So again, unless it's an enzyme that's specific to 4 strands instead of 2 strands. So it's interesting that the helicase that's the most important part of this as far as I'm concerned. There's also the
did you catch the fact that this is predominantly seen in cancer cells?
It is, but what they're saying here is that they're seeing this in live cells as something normal, or potentially normal. We don't even know having...
What I was reading was that it looks like it's not very common in normal cells, or at least they're not able to detect it in normal cells.
That
with the
seems
chemistry.
to be a thing.
So they crippled the helicase, and they were able to see G quadruplex hanging out.
But it's far more often than cancer cells. So the question is, based on my understanding of how the X-Files works, right?
God damn it!
This
is the black shit, right?
This is the black shit. God damn it! You're absolutely right. So according to the X-Files.
According to the X-Files, the answers are out there.
The aliens have the quadruplex DNA, and so that's really the difference.
Also, you for bringing this up, but God damn it, that was a good call.
It's true. Also, the 5th element. According to the 5th element, this is a normal part of those who have the ability to be.
According to the 5th element, this is a massive understatement of what should be possible.
So realistically, what I'm reading in this article really strongly suggests we should breed the cancer and not the people.
Because you should have, if you want to get yourself a 5th element, you need a G decaplex. Quadruplex is for plebes, man.
Oh, that may be true. But I also need the stones that can converge on the individual with the appropriate DNA that banishes the darkness forever.
Find me the stones. God, Gary Oldman was such a good actor in that movie.
That whole movie was great. I'm going to feel so bad when I get to be old and have kids and have to explain to them why they should watch that shit.
No, you see, that's the thing. You don't do that. You just fucking show it to them and explain afterwards. That's what
but I mean...
Look, I got to see when I was like, the height of my fucking shin, I got to watch Alien and then Aliens on TV with my dad.
That didn't leave any kind of impression at all.
First off, Aliens doesn't count. It's not even the same category because they're silicon-based organisms instead of standard carbon-based organisms, which is why they have this special acid that eats through everything.
I mean, that doesn't explain any of that, but that's
it doesn't.
A cool story, bro.
No, not really.
But it was a really cool story. I will say, one of the downsides to watching sci-fi after you get your chemical engineering degrees, you're like, yeah, that doesn't work.
Oh man.
Well,
you know how bad action movies are for me now that I know how all guns and cars work? Oh,
oh my God.
Oh, you mean those revolvers that don't have 17 bullets in them?
That's why my hopes lie in that there is really a secret Stargate in Cheyenne Mountain. That's that's where all of my sci-fi hopes lie.
So one of the skills you have to kind of reacquire when you go through an engineering education is the ability to suspend your disbelief. Because normally what happens is these things aren't presented to you as a fantastical setting. They're presented to you as a math problem. And your job is to pick it apart and go, this isn't right, I'm not going to answer it.
Literally, if you take the FE exam as a chemical engineer, one of the questions is this theoretically possible? Yes or no? And they give you the underlying statements, and the answer is always fucking no. Like, so you turn around and you have to go watch, like, sci-fi or karate or whatever the hell it is. I'm referencing karate because I've just been watching Cobra Kai, and so you watch this stuff, and at the end of the day, you're like, nope, that doesn't work. And then you have a spouse, and the spouse says, "Why is it that you have to ruin everything?"
I'm not ruining it. I'm trying to tell you it could be better.
That's exactly right.
It depends on how you define ruin.
Like for instance, a good example: The Expanse is brilliantly put together as a series.
Yes, The Expanse.
And you don't have to pull that shit apart. You just watch it, and it's brilliant.
Yes.
And then you get to turn around and go, "What the fuck is this blue goo shit?"
I want to be very, very clear here. I would be dry humping Craig right now because he and I are like that in sync. The Expanse actually sits there and makes an extra effort to incorporate appropriate physics so that the one portion that it steps outside of physical laws doesn't make you ruin the entire episode.
You know, you just have like this giant ass structure doing twirlies in the sand.
They even explain the physics of the Gauss shell that penetrates the hull of the ship and knocks off somebody's head and has the blood sucked out the void. Right? Like, that is how good The Expanse is. And then you turn around and say, "Hey, aliens." And they're like, "All right, whatever." That's good enough.
Yeah. Space gates.
Sure, whatever.
I love that. Space gates, and there's a speed limit.
That's exactly right.
You know,
you're like,
I mean,
whatever.
at least they're making the effort. You know,
they did really good.
The Expanse makes beyond an effort. And actually, if you read the details of The Expanse, it actually says that they specifically had an author that was like an engineer or a physicist or something like that.
You can tell.
And he said it was far more important for him to get the details right than it was to explain why the alien shit worked. And you're like,
yeah.
Yes, it is.
It really is, honestly.
Well, they make the episodes when they do that shit. You know?
It really does. I mean, what was it? The second or the third episode in The Expanse?
Well, just the fact that the ships turn around to decelerate.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, that's so fundamental to how shit has to happen. And you just watch other stuff like fucking Star Wars. They never do this shit. The only time they even bothered to try that was in episode 2 or 3? No, episode 3. When they had the thing decelerating out of the atmosphere. And how they do it? They put the clamshell decelerator like you do for a fucking airplane. I mean, that's not how it works.
I mean, Eureka did a pretty good job attempting to simulate the physics, so I could actually, suspend my disbelief. Because they had a boson field that was specifically interacting with something or other, and it doesn't really matter what it is, but all I know is that by the time it came down to it, it was a deceleration field for a space jump. And you're like, yes, this thing that was traveling faster than the speed of light has been reduced to the speed of light because it encountered something preventing it from accelerating past the speed of light. And you're like, okay, I can buy that. And then you go to Star Trek, and it's like, yeah, we're going several times the speed of light, and then we're not going to collapse into have a supernova path.
What I really like about the way they explain that is they talk about multiples of the speed of light, even though they're supposedly traveling at warp, which is less than the speed of light inside a localized bubble.
Yeah,
so
I know, right?
They can't act. They're sitting there trying to. They explain it as multiples of the speed of light, even though they're not fucking traveling that fast.
But here's
instead of saying how far they're traveling instead.
Here's the fucking kicker: each version of Star Trek has a different correlation to the speed of light with its warp speed.
Yeah, right. They kind of do.
And then you have this transwarp shit with the reboot, which was cool. The fact that you could catch up to somebody while going at warp speed, even though that would take you through an entirely different tunnel of shortcutted space-time. But who the fuck cares about that?
The transwarp stuff really first appeared in Voyager, right? And that was like how the Borg.
And Voyager was one of the greatest Star Wars mistakes ever.
But the thing was, he's sitting, he's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm entering in your equation for transwarp, blah blah blah." It's like, just say it's working, man. just instead of saying "I'm entering in your blah blah," just step on the pad.
This is by the way, and I feel entirely bad for Evan here because this is literally how engineers watch movie. We're like, we turn around, we're like, all right, we're 45 minutes in, and you're just like, no, that's wrong, and you just start yelling it, and your spouse gets very mad at you for ruining her.
No, this reminds me of the first time I watched Fast and the Furious. You know, I was big into cars back then.
Cars don't do that?
It's like, what, you're doing what? You're installing what? No, that's a steering wheel.
It's cool, bro. It fits in the engine compartment. Let's just close the door.
What about Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, where he catches the bullet between his teeth? You're like, no.
Well, there's a line, you know, when it's a cartoon.
I mean, it would be okay if it was a cartoon.
Well, I mean,
but I mean, like,
you
know, and I still think the two things that really irritate me the most are Star Wars when they're spinning out in space. There's two things in Star Wars, right? So the first thing was it's spinning in space, saying they lost their grav plating, and then they're tumbling around inside the spaceship, and you're like, no, that's not. You either don't have gravity or you do have gravity. You can't pick which one you want.
You see what they had? They had was no gravity and no concept of conservation of rotational momentum.
That's exactly correct, and it was fucking irritating. And it irritates you the whole time. And then all of a sudden, when they sit there and they have the plasma or the laser shots or whatever the fuck it is that comes out of those vehicles, and they make sound in space, so you've already ruined it. You've already ruined your sense of immersion when they're tumbling in space for no fucking reason. And then all of a sudden they're making sounds in space with space weapons.
You know what? What we really need is explosions in asteroid fields.
As a quick segue here, too, among that, you should both, and anybody listening, should check out Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's got really good space physics, and you're basically just a space scrapper. You just tear apart small ships. It's really slick, and there is no sound in space until you get a thing that picks up the sound waves from their very...
Oh, let's see. This woman just said that a statement that abortion is violence is violent rhetoric and objectively false. And meant to incite others to commit crimes against clinics, patients, and healthcare providers.
What are you talking
about? This is what domestic terrorism looks like.
This is
saying that aborting a fetus is violence is apparently violence.
You know what?
That's so fucking funny.
This is what we all get to look forward to over the next 4 years with Biden as president. Although, of course, Biden is going to end up being president for life, and it will really be Kamala Harris.
Well,
but
I was just saying,
Biden will never die.
Life is about a month, isn't it?
No. So what it'll be is it'll be Biden presidency, right? And they'll just never admit when Biden dies.
You see, you got it wrong though, because it's really the Harris-Biden administration.
Oh, that's true. It is
according to Harris herself, yeah.
Well, according to Joe,
was a Freudian slip on her part, and it was pretty obvious.
Well,
you know what?
And an old man slip on old Joe's part.
The fact that the Democrats chose to use Trojan horse politics is a stunning. Either it's a stunning admission of Trump's defeat, or it's just a stunning admission of where they think the voter base is. I mean, they're basically
they think they're smarter than everybody else.
I absolutely agree with you. They are,
and they're just not.
No, they aren't. Well, I mean, that's the thing is these politicians, they come out...
They're smarter than a lot of their voters, which is really sad.
You know, you say that, but I work for a national lab, so I don't even know what that's like.
Republicans also think they're smarter than a lot of their voters, and they're right about that, too.
I don't know what it's like to interact with average anymore, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I can imagine that's a pretty nice experience.
It is.
And it has its perks.
It does. It has its downsides because then you actually have to make a coherent argument rather than just bludgeoning people with their stupid.
You can't just be correct. You have to be extra correct. Because sometimes someone else is correct too, and you go, fuck.
That's exactly correct. They're like, well, did you consider this? And you're like, oh.
No, I didn't. I'm so right.
You'd be surprised how much that statement actually comes up. And then you have to wheel and deal at like this super high level where you're like, well, you're just confused. Let me explain how to confuse you, and then you'll be confused, and then I was right all along.
At which point they say, what do you think, I'm average? And you go, shit, you're not.
That's exactly right. And then you have those people that know more than you, and legitimately know more than you, and you will never know as much as them because they're the people that edit the textbooks that you're referencing.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, well, let's just pretend we didn't have this conversation.
Say, I'm still right, but before we started talking.
We have one of those guys at the lab who is one of the two people qualified in the United States to actually make a comment on a certain textbook. And so when he makes a statement, it's just basically taken as gospel because nobody's willing to argue against him. Yeah. And then you have to explain to him why it is that you don't want to do what he wants you to do. Those are fun conversations.
I can only imagine.
There is, it's amazing, Evan. The most amazing thing about engineering is that the deeper and deeper that you go, there is a point at which you and everybody else around you just accepts that it's fucking magic.
I can honestly believe that.
We got a guy who you talk to are the highest tier of compliance individuals, and you say, "Are you sure you really agree with us?" And they say, "Yeah." And you're like, "Why?" And they say, "Because so and so said so." And you're like, "Really? That's the only reason?" They said, "Yes, that is the only reason. You should probably accept that."
Well, shit,
Can you explain this to me? No.
Well, so here's a crazy one. Being able to talk to people like Dr. Bird. I'm sure you had to read through the BSL as well.
Which one?
Bird, Stewart, and Lightfoot.
I don't know that one actually.
That wasn't your transport book?
No.
Sucks to be you.
Sure it does.
Well, so that's Bird was also he's also the one behind the fuck is it Bird Crow, I think it was for sure thinning.
Don't know that one either.
So I actually helped run a conference that my PI had to chair, and it was just you're sitting there I've been doing all this rheological stuff, and then I get to look at all the names I'm handing out, and I'm just sitting there just as I'm handing it out I know who this person is, and this person, and this person, and this person, and it's I've read all these textbooks.
Yeah,
the fun one was my fluids professor from fucking UF drove down for the conference to give a talk, and I got to hand him his badge, and I said, I took your fluids class, and he looked at me and he said, "You don't get to do that to me."
See, I have
to be a little gratifying.
So as a nuke engineer, right? There's only a handful of people who actually know the shit that we're talking about, and I'm sure it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I happen to choose the one school that hosts the two people that are responsible for pretty much all nuke engineering textbooks. I just happened to choose it. It was solely because the administration was less of a pain in the ass than the other administrations that I had to deal with. That is the sole reason I chose it. And then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, Dr. blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, my PI is one of the people that writes the books in my field, and that's already a trip in itself.
It is. Well, you know what
here's the fucked up thing, but we had a conference on campus, and there's the whole peer review thing, and there's. You're not supposed to even tell other people when you've been a reviewer or not. But I got contacted as an expert in my field, and who the fuck are you talking about? It's like, am I one of 5 people in it now?
I still think that my favorite was my rad shielding course that I last took. I turned around to the professor, I said, I think I should get X number of points back. He said, no, you sat there and you did X right, which is more than what everybody else in the class did right. But that doesn't really get you the full amount of points. And I was like, well, fuck you, your book is wrong. Here is where your book was wrong. He said, well, thank you, I will contact so-and-so to edit the book at a later date. You're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, even had...
I actually have a similar experience to that, but in martial arts. But maybe that's a story for a different time. Although I do completely understand being completely outclassed by somebody and having a chance to learn underneath of them. So.
You know what? It's still the best experience in the world when you turn around and you tell somebody who happens to be the author in their field that they're wrong, and they accept your comment.
Yeah,
you're like, yes!
That is a cool feeling.
I can only imagine. I was
right once.
That is pretty dope.
Frame that shit. There you go.
I will take that email and I will turn that into a banner.
So the one thing you can take away from this, and I'm assuming that your martial arts experience was more recent as well. Oftentimes you can tell a lot about the successes someone's had in their life by how far back they have to reach for glory. So, the stories we've been telling here are all within 5-10 years or less. 6
months, motherfucker.
There you go.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, no, mine's within that time frame.
And then there are people who have to reach back to like Pee Wee soccer.
Oh, jeez.
So, be happy.
I call that death of a salesman. Because anybody who has to reach back, like...
This sounds like the taming of a shrew right now.
It does. My boss, so I just did my performance evaluations, and my boss sat there and listed all of these things. I'm like, oh, I completely forgot. He's like, radically changed this, that, and the next thing. I'm like, oh, man, I completely forgot I did that last year. I was on this problem.
Well, I'm not doing all that much amazing stuff these days, other than, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to make some
parts. We have our spectacular podcast.
We do. We do, and it's
so,
amazing.
Actually.
With the hottest and most brilliant people listening, I think we should...
Oh, yeah, no, that's an absolute
amazing
the biggest brain...
That's exactly right.
Only the biggest brain to people listen to a podcast like this.
That's exactly right. Nobody who is average listens to us. Because, A...
Nobody thinks you're being serious.
I mean, in all honesty, though, I mean, the kind of audience that I can only imagine I have, I don't imagine I have average people listening. I think we've got some
we
pretty
don't talk about
cool
average
stuff.
topics.
We certainly don't.
You know what? It's probably a physics professor that's going to sit there and comment as to exactly why we were wrong, and we're going to feel really bad for the next episode.
Oh, man, I am waiting for that to happen. I really am.
Okay.
So, yeah, putting it out there.
I'm down with it.
Absolutely. And I don't have any other articles I was wanting to go over. And there's we're just going to have to kind of keep our eyes on things.
Well, I mean,
we've been going for what, about we're past 2 hours now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I figured as much.
We started somewhere around 11 because that's when,
That's when everything
Evan got around to actually starting the thing.
And you'll notice that the internet hasn't gone down since we started recording.
Shit, man.
Anyway.
You know what? It'd be just great if all of a sudden Google christened you as a dissident, and then all of a sudden cut off your internet. I would be so happy.
If Google christened him as a descendant, that'd be pretty fucking spectacular.
That would be pretty spectacular.
Google. Give me them Google bucks.
We wouldn't have to worry about actually appealing to people. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, you don't even have to do no evil anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I might get my
Google
50 bucks
hasn't had
back.
to do no evil for months.
Ooh. That's right. You could get those monetization bucks back, right?
Yeah. Hey, which I don't know if I'm ever going to see those again.
Still haven't heard head nor tail of that, huh?
Yeah, I don't think I will.
Yeah, what was it? Sinatra's had that problem, and a few other people. I mean,
at the end of the day, like.
Well, I never crossed.
Kidding aside, we're facing dark times.
We are.
We're facing really dark times.
Yeah, I'll still be the optimist, though. I think China's going to fuck it up before we do.
They are doing really well. Well, you know what? There is something we should go over before we get off of here that I was legitimately wanting to discuss in this. A couple of good, quick tips for ways of handling yourself online in the days coming up. Because, now more than ever, it's good to know. So
while the getting's still good, get on Keybase.
Yeah, get on Keybase.
Until they figure out that's a place that people are going, get on there. That's
also,
a good one.
Startpage.com. If you want to use Google, when you're searching on Google, the only thing you search on Google is completely vanilla shit. Don't look up anything that even has a curious word.
Oh, no. Go and look up all your craziest porn on there.
That's cool. I mean, yes, no, do that.
I'm really okay with Google sitting there revealing my porn search list.
Yeah, no, that is actually fine. Look up porn, look up cars. Don't look up anything on guns. Don't look up your chemical stuff. Don't look up your drug stuff.
Oh, you see, that's the problem because all the chemical and syntheses and all kinds of fun shit that I look up has already got me flagged from decades ago now.
Well, yeah, if you aren't already
flagged. Did I ever tell you guys that one of my friends is on the terrorist watch list? Legitimately on the terrorist watch list?
Did they look up Ammon Pulver a little bit too often?
No, his kid is autistic, and so...
Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so autists have an obsession, and his obsession is the Twin Towers. So when he went to go apply for a bank loan for his house, he couldn't get one because his kid has looked up, too much terrorist shit.
Oh, man.
That sucks because it's not his fucking fault either.
No, it's not.
You can't get angry at him.
I mean, it's really funny because he holds a clearance and is simultaneously on the terrorist watch list. It's amazing.
Oh, so it's kind of like when they made up the original watch list, or the original no-fly list, and there were a bunch of Department of Homeland Security people that were on it.
Yeah, so it's no-fly-list.com. I believe that's the public list right now.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that have been added to that.
Yeah. So Keybase is one thing. Doing PGP to sign your messages. Mailvelope, if you use Gmail, is a good extension on Chrome. Brave browser is a reasonable alternative. I would not go with anything done by Mozilla or Firefox.
Yeah, they've recently shown themselves.
Mozilla recently showed. Yeah, they showed their hand. They are fuckers.
Well, I mean, Mozilla's always been kind of fuckers, which is why people went to Chrome.
Yeah.
But that was back when Google had "Do No Evil" as its actual slogan, and then do as much evil as possible.
The other main reason was that Mozilla took about a fucking year and a half after Chrome came out to figure out how to do multiple processes to separate out tabs, so that all your RAM wasn't consumed by one process that consumed all your processing power.
I mean, to be fair, Chrome had a ton of memory leaks in the early versions.
Right.
So by the time Mozilla caught up, Chrome actually still had more memory leaks than Mozilla did.
Right, but so the issue is still that you couldn't actually do a whole lot beyond a certain limit for processing power in Firefox.
Yep.
Anyway, so Brave is actually based in a Firefox version, I believe. I think it's devved independently completely now. But Brave is a good browser. The Tor browser, which is good, you can use. I believe you can even.
Brave has a Tor integration, by the way.
Yeah. So if you want to use the base Tor browser or Brave, those are both great browsers. At this point, they're both mature. So Linux users are all just going to be cackling. You guys can go using just whatever browser you decide to install off of Yapt. I would recommend still using Yapt. That's a finer repo distribution. You don't have to do any other
And I'll be including links
the
to
people
a few
who are
well.
actually legitimately using Linux do not need any advice from us.
I mean, I could give some, but look that shit up yourself.
Let's be entirely honest. The people who are using Linux are 9 times out of 10 just operating via the command prompt, and it's pretty amazing.
No, I mean it's just Linux. You don't need to do that.
Yeah,
you don't need to, but you usually.
And if you don't use command prompt in Windows, then you're fucking weird too. Oh, I'm sorry, not weird. You're a normie. That was it.
Oh, no. Command prompt has its uses in Windows. Command prompt gives you superpowers.
Windows 10 literally has Linux built in. Now,
does it?
It literally. So yes, the Linux subsystem for Windows. Or Windows Linux. So look up WLS2. Or WLS2 space Windows 10 or whatever.
It's been a long time since I've actually considered a legitimate Linux distribution.
But it's literally so there. You can go into the Windows Store and install them off of that too once you enable it. But it's like completely baked in its own kernel. Its only layering is at the very, very bottom for the separation from hardware. So it's literally the fucking Linux distribution, Linux kernel, ready to go. As a subsystem, it is basically independent of the operating system. Operates in the same file space, or you can give it its own independent file space. But you can. I had this argument with a friend of mine who decided he got out of the military. I got him a laptop because I basically grew up with the guy and he's like a brother to me. And then he turns around and he puts fucking Linux on it, and I said, why the hell did you do that? You can do that in Windows.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why you don't want to use Linux nowadays.
There were reasons at the time because WLS2 hadn't come out yet. It was only WLS1, which was not a full subsystem. But now that there's a full subsystem...
There's a link for that, too, by the way. In the
but, I mean, even then, right, like, to use most of your core programs, you end up having to use a Windows environment anyways, and it's just going to be some sort of emulated environment in Linux.
I'm just saying, like, right now, like, there's zero reason to have to do dual boot or to like, if you're going to do a Linux box...
Sure.
If you don't have to do anything in Windows and you want to do a Linux box, that's fine, but if you have to switch between the two... There's zero reason to do a Linux distro outside of Windows because you can install whichever fucking distro you want. It just happens that things like Ubuntu are easy to do from the Windows Store. Anyway,
Linux,
whatever.
Yeah, we're way outside the norm. I'm not a huge. So I am personally, as much as I love Linux, I don't really dive into it just because it's not useful.
Other software. VeraCrypt, which is the successor to TrueCrypt, which you should not be using. VeraCrypt is still secure, so if you want to do any kind of secure storage, VeraCrypt is very useful. And then portable apps, you should go ahead and use portable apps if you want to do a plethora of different things. What the hell is it called? I have it right here. KeyPass, you should be using instead of any of
with an A or with an I?
With an A. VERA crypt. If you want to be doing password storage, which you should be doing password storage in Generation, etc., you should be using something like KeyPass. You can also use KeyPass in conjunction with a cloud service like Dropbox or Box or even Windows Cloud Services. The reason to do this is that it is encrypted on your end, and it doesn't matter if they have it because they can't fucking get inside and just get your passwords, so you don't have access. Make sure that you keep you use like a file as your password instead of a regular password, or preferably both. Because you can do that, by the way. You just basically have a file that is hashed as part of the process to open up the database and mixed in with your normal text password. With VeraCrypt, you can do these kind of this kind of layered thing for encrypted spaces, so that you have plausible deniability. So you can do like a hidden partition. So it's very useful for hiding out things, and you don't even have to worry about like a government entity being involved here. If you're dealing with like a court case, or if you're dealing with corporate environment, having a hidden partition is very useful for keeping trade secrets. So just as a thing, like if you go around with a corporate laptop or whatever, this is one of those ways you can enhance security.
Or say you're Nancy Pelosi and leave your laptop in your office.
Yeah.
Which we can guarantee that this was not used in such a case.
To be entirely fair, our politicians aren't really expected to have to actually do any information security.
And she's also high on vodka 24/7.
And probably pills.
And probably, yeah, at this point.
Oh,
definitely.
but the other thing I was going to mention, if you're going to use, well, you're going to use Google. They're just a good resource, even if they're garbage. I mean, it's a powerful tool, so you might as well use it. Use StartPage, startpage.com, and I'm going to have links to all the stuff we've been talking about. It will search Google for you from a completely anonymous source, and it will open whatever you want to open in a new tab on its own.
As in addition to what we've said so far, you should also use GPG, which is the GNU implementation of PGP, which is the asymmetric cryptography stuff, so public-private key pairs. That will install an application on your computer called Cleopatra that starts with a K. And in Cleopatra, you can manage your key pairs, generate new ones, etc. So if you're a power user, I would recommend importing your own key pair when you get a Keybase account instead of using the auto-generated pair. That way you can guarantee it's 4096-bit instead of the 2048 default. And you can also add more key pairs to it. Keybase basically has this kind of chain of trust. Or it's kind of like a public ledger, but not like blockchain, but it involves signing of events via key pairs. And your public key is known there. If you're gonna do stuff like that, you may as well upload to a repo like the MIT repo, and that's easier to do if you just generate them in Cleopatra and upload them right from there. You can always paste them in later if you want. Also, if you're really worried about someone like coming after you or anything, if you're in a position where you might get an NSL, if you don't know what an NSL is, don't worry about it. Those national security letters. You can always do what's called a canary certificate, or putting up a canary. And what these are, so you're not so while you may be compelled to not say something. You can't be compelled to say something under U.S. law. And so what that means is a canary, which is something, so a key that you put up that will expire at a certain date. And if you don't put up the next one, it's kind of like a dead man switch.
Yeah, basically the light goes out, and
right.
You see the light is out here. This is actually a perfect example of this. Is there used to be one on 4chan once upon a time. That said,
and also,
this site has never gotten any letters from federal agencies regarding anything, and then one day it was gone.
So they can compel you to put up a message saying that, but they can't compel you to put up a canary. And there was some trick of language that was used to make that change. That's pretty recent too. It was 2014. Anyway, for the canaries. A good example of this happening in practice is actually the reason why you don't use TrueCrypt anymore. So we still don't know what happened on their end, but basically they failed to put up a canary, and then 4 months later, after that, and this was like a weekly canary, 4 months after they failed to put up the canary, they said you shouldn't be using TrueCrypt anymore if you're using it. Switch to something else. And then Veracrypt came out later, and the TrueCrypt people basically said, Veracrypt still looks good. They couldn't legally say, I guess, and this is suspicion, that whatever was done or required of TrueCrypt had been fixed. But that's the suspicion is that something had been forced upon TrueCrypt, and since they open source and Veracrypt is open source, so you can go if you have any concerns. And you know a security expert, you can go talk to them and say, hey, can you verify this stuff? But one of the reasons I mentioned portable apps is Veracrypt, KeyPass can both be put onto a portable drive. Using if you know what portable apps are, as either the portable apps branding or just having apps that are capable of being thrown onto a thumb drive. You can carry around your passwords and basically your ability to unlock hidden partitions with you. So I very much recommend having that. I recommend having multiple keys that you can spread out unique keys across a set of USB keys and require a certain subset of them, so that you only need, like, say, 4 out of 5 keys or 3 out of 5 keys, etc. You can set that up so that you can still unlock your hidden partitions and things. That's a little bit extra paranoid, but if you have a group activity that's required and you only need a certain amount of you to get something done, you can kind of set that up ahead of time and move forward with however you need to manage meeting up with people in person, because you don't want to send stuff like that, through the email or whatever.
I think it's kind of interesting.
It sounds a little overboard, but it does have use.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, at the end of the day, when we're starting to talk about what we're talking about, right, which is keeping your shit to yourself.
Yeah.
All intents and purposes. The biggest problem that you're going to have, and fundamentally this has been observed time and time again, is that people will get to you before you're actually able to accomplish whatever your goals are.
So, a friend of mine in the military, so talk about security and stuff, so from military intelligence. Basically, all this kind of stuff, so the smarter people out there who try to do things that they should not be doing that are against our national interests, and in a very bad way. Think, ISIS and shit. When it comes down to it, they aren't going to. If you have a strong password and you're extrajudicial, you're not inside our legal framework. They aren't going to sit there and try and guess your password a billion times, and you can sit there with a smirk on your face and say you're never going to be able to crack it. They'll just break your legs, and then you'll give them the password anyway. So, like, at a certain point, there is a breaking. So the point here isn't to expect that. The point is that at a certain level, the effort that would go into compromising the security measures you use will break even with the effort required to get you to give up the information needed in order to unlock things via social engineering instead of via computer engineering.
Yes.
And the break-even point is not nearly as significant as you think it is. It's not.
That's
so
fundamentally
crazy.
the issue is that fundamentally what we found is that regardless of your encryption, you can be technically an expert on all of these things, but social engineering will generally get you what you need before you actually do passwords. When we start talking about the major cracks in major system softwares like the Pentagon or any one of those others, it's usually what Craig talked as social engineering. Basically, they call up and they pretend to be somebody who they're not, but it's somebody that you would otherwise trust, and you give them the information they need.
Hey, this is Evan from down at Central. I'm just checking in on something. Can you go ahead and just let me know about that real quick? I don't want to be in your hair for a long time.
Yeah, that's pretty close to it.
So if you're starting to talk about...
You can even just do that in emails, by the way. In a lifetime that will not be spoken of. Someone who isn't me used to do things like that.
Right.
And so you can do this shit in emails. You can do it in a text message. It's very straightforward. Most people are very trusting, and generally speaking, most people don't have much to be untrustworthy or untrusting about. Most of the time, it's a benign, totally normal interaction. But someone out there who does social engineering, you can even just read Kevin Mitnick's books. They're fantastic reads, and he says the exact same thing. The first thing you go for when you're trying to break into something is the human element, because it's always weakest.
So fundamentally, if you're concerned about OPSEC, if that's the way you're going to operate, all of that's perfectly fine, but it's only as good as you are, right? You can employ all of the technology in the world, but the reality is, whether it's what we consider to be our hackers or our non-criminal hackers, They always end up going after the human element because that's the easiest part to break.
So pen testing
encryption is hard. Human beings are easy.
So the technical term for what you do as a white hat, which would be the virtuous hackers, is called pen testing or penetration testing. And so I'm more of a gray hat. I dabble in the darker magic, if you will. And then there's black hats, who are the kind of people who do things like put out the WannaCryptor virus and steal all your bitcoins because fuck you. That's why. So there's obviously there are limits to gray hats. A person like me, my expertise in these kinds of things is going to come down to the technical aspect of things. So I will technically know how to do something extremely illegal or stupid, but I'm not going to do it because it would be extremely illegal and stupid. Whereas a person who's a black hat would happily go ahead and do it if it gave them some advantage, like money. A white hat is the kind of person who comes in and tries to figure out how you're vulnerable to these situations, and will, they're the ones you pay to come in and try to test out your hardware or your server or whatever. And then they'll give you a report saying, here's the things you have to secure, here's how you fix things. Basically, I'm just a lazy white hat, and it comes down to it like that.
So fundamentally, if you're concerned about OPSEC, it doesn't matter. All of these things we could tell you. We could tell you how to secure your hardware. We could tell you how to secure your software. We could tell you how to secure your communications. But it doesn't matter if you are the weak link.
Indeed. Secure yourself.
And it just takes a healthy degree of... so you can start off with cynicism, but then you'll end up just being an asshole. A healthy degree of skepticism will help you. But, then there's always situations where, it really is just a benign interaction. But, never be afraid, for example, if someone's going to come and, replace an air conditioner or whatever in a building, never be afraid to ask them for credentials.
And don't be afraid to do your job.
Yeah, there's that too.
Everybody's got a job somewhere, and if you don't, condolences, but it'll come around.
Right.
And when it does, don't be afraid to do the thing you were hired to do. Even if it's, maybe it's a little inconvenient to do the right thing every time. You might as well. There's a reason why it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So asking people for credentials if they're coming in to do a job on something, perfectly normal, and it's an easy way to catch mischief on its way through. So, this is one of those reasons why, for instance, that a lot of companies have adopted the policy of never asking for security confirmations via electronic communications. Without having some sort of confirmation step in between. So passwords will never be requested, for instance, from staff at Twitch or, Twitter or YouTube or whatever. They're never going to ask you for a password.
Falls back to a lot of the classic over-the-phone scams. It
Exactly.
goes the other way, too. If somebody's calling you up and saying, hey, I'm from the IRS, we need your money, and you're going to have to get us an Amazon card. I mean, that's an extreme example, but a perfect example nonetheless. You kind of have to live your life that way with... just keep your eyes open, honestly.
Yeah. So, for all the stuff that's going on with WhatsApp, Signal is actually the thing that WhatsApp is based on. The Signal app is the reference implementation of the Signal protocol. The Signal protocol is actually developed by Twitter, but it's open source, it's free and open source software. You can go and look at it yourself. It's perfectly fine. It's end-to-end secure. WhatsApp. The change in the terms of service, all that's doing is formalizing what Facebook has been doing since they purchased WhatsApp. So all the security issues that have been going on with WhatsApp are already present, have been present basically since Facebook bought it. That's why you had to change the privacy stuff when you had the next update in WhatsApp after they purchased it. All those new things that you had to have access to are because Facebook was actively monitoring. So now they're going to have it formalized in the agreement that you've clicked on and gone through the click wrap. Signal is secure. Keybase similar in structure. It's a thing that was built up from ground up through cryptographic secure communications. It was kind of made for programmers by programmers. In fact, the major caveat I'm going to make sure I put out there right now and stress it is that Zoom purchased it after that whole server in China fuck up. And the reason they did that was so that they could get the experts from behind Keybase to unfuck their Zoom conference calling software.
And on that note, I have linked Keybase in here. That's another thing you need to get in touch, get installed, and get on.
So the caveat here is while they've promised to allow the Keybase team to remain independent, that may or may not hold true in the future. And if that does happen to fall through, hopefully by then they'll have released the source on Keybase, because it's a really fantastic protocol. Otherwise, it's very secure and it's very easy to use. And if you have other public-facing identities, it allows you to give people positive proof of who you are in these locations. And you can also, the same way you would with any other key pair repository, public key repository, you can also kill keys. You can say these keys are no longer valid, and it shows up on the kind of chain of trust that you've built up. And you can do also, for instance, multiple users in the app and in the system. So you can do multiple sign-in, something that Twitter, until just last year, had a lot of trouble giving people. So it's not like Twitter. You don't have a public-facing feed of stuff you say, but it's more like WhatsApp.
I just want to cut in because where we started this episode with Bitcoin at 34,000 some odd, it is now down to 32,000 some odd.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the crash has begun.
Oh, my Lambo.
That is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I am far more interested in watching a whole bunch of people cry tomorrow.
This is dry shit what I'm saying right here. We needed some spice.
It is extremely dry shit. Again, and what I want to talk about is what Craig is saying is absolutely amazing. I've dealt with a lot of these protocols. Honestly, I abandoned most of them because it doesn't fucking matter. I am the milquetoastiest of milquetoastiest motherfuckers when it comes to online shit. What I post and what I deal with and what I allow other servers to upload is nothing spicy. There is nothing spicy in any of my comps. And I make that absolutely clear. And that's because ultimately I understand that fundamentally I can secure everything that I say and do up the wazoo, and it doesn't matter. But Bitcoin is now down to 32,000, which is pretty amazing considering we started this episode with it at 34,000, with it being 41,000 like yesterday.
Yeah.
It is.
So it is falling like a fucking rock.
So it'll be time to buy again soon.
So I guess we should just remind people kindly to send in all their questions specifically for Steve, and none for the rest of us.
I only
if you've got anything, guys, give out your social media real quick in case anybody wants to get in touch.
It is what Evan's saying is, and what Craig are saying are both very useful bits. It's just the fundamentally where I stand on all of this stuff is you can secure your shit as much as you want. It doesn't matter if you are the least secure. And I accept that I am the least secure in my OpCon stuff.
Absolutely true.
All right, so social media, you can ping me on Twitter at CraigBob99.
I am at Ratman720.
And you'll know who I am because I'm the only person with my little spaceship icon.
Is that what that is? I thought it was a cock.
Or an extremely strangely shaped cock. Yeah.
I mean, you are Jewish, right? Like some shaving is implied.
Does that look circumcised to you?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
My as your circumcised cack on Twitter.
And, yeah, you can find me at that fake guy Dan. So, thanks everybody for listening in. We'll definitely be back again next week, hopefully with the whole crew. And it's been a pleasure again.
I mean, how many is the whole crew?
I don't know. We might have somebody new next time. Who knows? I'm
That'd
always
be
willing
awesome.
to take somebody else. I'd like to get you guys on with Kevin. He's pretty cool. But anyway, later, people.
You know what I want?
What?
I want a climate scientist.
Oh my
I would love
God!
to,
I would love to have you two
love to
talk with a
question
climate
somebody
scientist.
who
You'd have to do that without being a dick, though. Could you do it?
I could.
I mean, it'd be worth it to do it, right?
All right.
I mean, I don't.
Well,
think
I like different points of view.
Right. Well, that's the thing is, I don't think I'm overwhelmingly a dick. I am like 78% dick, and the majority of that is reserved to people with an IQ 100 and lower.
And the remainder of you is where you pulled that statistic from.
That's exactly correct.
And
but that's only 22% engineer. It's 78% dick.
And that's the line. All right. We're out of here. Talk to you again soon.